1,000?
Says 1.1 thousand viewers.
Did someone send
I don't
their
know.
bots in? I think we're back live right now.
Okay. We are in YouTube. Maybe is it the same channel link for them?
It should be. Glenn said you could just keep hitting the button over and over again.
Yeah, they have to X out probably and come back in though.
Yeah. Well, it
I can
should.
find out. I can find out real quick by clicking the link on my retweet. If that is the case.
Yeah, it started again. It gave me another notification, so I think we're on.
I see us on Periscope right now, which is nice. Thank you everybody for stopping by.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. My computer, the internet just stopped working on my computer.
Okay. Well,
Never had that one happen before.
the old link is taking us to the old dead video on YouTube.
No, but there's a new link and we're back.
Yeah, I'll have to
YouTube.
re-put that out on
Yeah.
my Twitter. So I'm gonna go delete this tweet. So follow along on Periscope as we massage our YouTube issues.
No, this would be a my computer. This isn't me doing something wrong. I didn't hit the wrong button. I didn't unplug the computer like it happened one time. Remember that? Did you watch that with Brickman?
No.
I was doing a stream with him and I just unplugged the computer. I moved the chair and it unplugged the computer.
That's a smooch-like move.
Yeah. No, this was just the computer just decided to shit the bed.
Wow. Well, the Iranian cyber warfare is real.
Yes. They're not only hacking federal book depository
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
websites.
That was a little bit sad.
They really got us good that time, boy.
And now, are you a Patriots fan?
I am.
Oh, then I
There.
apologize. I apologize. Well, actually, I hopefully got you away from the game for that
Yeah.
horrible, terrible, messy ending to Tom Brady's career in New England. But
I missed the last 5 minutes.
yeah, that he ended up throwing a pick six on his last throw in New England.
Ugh.
So
You think he's gonna retire on that note?
no, I think he's ended up in San Diego. To be honest with you, I think Philip Rivers moves on, and there's a little prediction, not politics, but I know a little bit about sports. Matter of fact, I really only know politics, sports, and religion. Other than that, I don't know anything. So, Narcissism Illustrated has shown the appreciation for our ability to set up a rebroadcast and by donating $50 to the super chat. We really appreciate that. So,
Thanks so much.
And now, without further ado, let's get back to explaining what I was going to talk about tonight, just so everybody knows what I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about in that circular bullshit the way we've been doing over and over and over again between the Tucker Carlsons, the Ann Coulters, the Pat Buchanans, the non-interventionalist types, the Europeans that are all what do you call it? A Twitter, I guess, because they're not happy about what's going on here. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. It might bore some people, Obi, but I don't. You're the type of guy that I've seen literally on Periscope fall asleep listening to tapes about the end of the Roman Empire. So you might appreciate a little bit about the background I'm about to give you here. And this is not in any way meant to differentiate the political implications of being one part of the Muslim community or another. I'm merely saying that our American media has long given up on explaining the difference between the Shiite faction and the Sunnis, and how much this plays a role in every single conflict that is going on in the Middle East. Internally, some that don't involve us, some that do involve us. Most of them are proxy issues like you would see in Yemen right now with the Saudis, which we are ostensibly backing. That, I mean, what you have, my first example here is to talk about now, not 632 AD, when Muhammad dies and one group of the religion thinks that it needs to be passed down in hereditary form and the other group does not. And that's how you end up with two factions after Muhammad whatever goes off and to heaven with a bunch of 12-year-old girls. So essentially, you have spread out through the Middle Eastern world and in China and Africa, you have these two. Now there are different versions inside, just like there are in Christianity, where you can split Christianity, Protestant groups with little tweaks here and there. They fight over stupid things, and occasionally do dumb things based on tiny little fundamentalist things, like the Mormons. Some say you can marry 12. Most Mormons don't do that, really. That's the kind of stuff we've seen over the years evolve with the Middle Eastern conflicts, that they are rooted fundamentally into the Shia and the Sunni group. So this has been guiding our U.S. policy for everything since post-World War II. The Reconstruction in Europe and the establishment of Israel as a country. We have been playing off the balances of that. And it's very interesting that I've been talking to people. I've been talking to a lot of people, our people, my family, other people who knew that there was this Shiite faction, Sunni faction. Most of their knowledge came from the fact that they're familiar with Iran and the Shah being overthrown. And since 1979, 1980, you've got this expansion where you had these Persians, you had Arab and Persian Christians in the area that were all of a sudden indoctrinated and forced to convert to the Shiite clan of Islam. And that made it eventually, what they're overstating the number, but they say that Iran has 20 million Shiites. Okay, so that's the largest collection of them in the world. So they generally are not the majority. The Sunnis are actually the majority. But to a lot of Americans, the Sunnis were the minority with the higher class in society, because that's the way it was set up in the Ba'athist party under Saddam Hussein. That's the way it's set up with the lineage of the Saudi family. The Sunnis do things a certain way, and the Shia, they do not. So the first thing we have to do is understand how these all work between Syria, Lebanon, our issues in Yemen, how Jordan feels, Kuwait feels, and how they're interacting with Israel. It's constantly evolving. And the United States geopolitical policies have always been on the heels of whatever's happening on that front. So when we took out Saddam Hussein, what we had about 30% of the country of the Ba'athist party. They were Sunnis, and what they were doing was they were torturing the Shiite clerks and their families and imprisoning them, and they held a certain order of things. And that's what the war, the component of the war between Iraq and Iran was based in that type of Sunni Shiite clash. So now you have this perfect scenario where we have this limited contingent in America, American forces rather, in Iraq, where we've got a lot of pissed off Iraq Shiites. And they feel that America has been playing off their tribalism long enough. There's a whole boatload, maybe up to 60% of that country, not in one contiguous area, though, they're spread across the country, but they feel that they've got a raw deal, that when the established democracy that we set up after we pulled out effectively in Iraq was set up to favor the Sunnis again. And so that little internal thing has been going on there. And that's what Iran is seeking to exploit. When they come over and cause trouble like they do with what they did to our embassy, with the agitation in the streets and things like that, what their general goal is to have this Shiite bond come together, coming from Iran into those in Iraq who are unhappy. And the issue that you have is the Sunnis, which a lot of people don't understand. The Sunnis, not all of them, obviously, Obi, but the Sunni philosophy is what led to the fundamentalist approach of al-Nizam, Daesh, which is ISIS, and ISIL, that whole thing, Al-Qaeda, those are all different iterations of Sunni extremism. So Sunni extremists have no problems killing Muslims. That's why they blow up the police stations of anybody that may or may not be cooperating in Afghanistan or Iraq, police forces, recruitments, hospitals and things like that, because the extremists in the Sunnis side of Islam believe that it's okay. As a matter of fact, it's a mandate that you kill
Mm-hmm.
Shiite, that they're not real. They're not real Muslims, so that it's your job to kill them. Now, the Shiites are so offended by the way the Sunni extremists work that they have their Ayatollah, their major clerics have said, if you commit a suicide bombing, that you will burn eternally in hell.
Hmm.
So their doctrine is shifted. So they prefer car bombs. They prefer storming hotels with AK-47s and shooting tourists and things like that. I mean, this is
IEDs, things like that.
things of that nature. Obviously, that's very good comparison. The Sunnis are like, we're going to cut your heads off on live TV. We're going to blow ourselves up. This is how you do it. And so you had these factions in Iran that were getting credit, including the Quds force led by General Soleimani. So they actually had respect from a lot of the Shiite populations in these various countries. The northern factions that were pushing up forward in Yemen, their only hope they had was somebody like Soleimani coming to rescue them from the Saudi attacks. You look at what was occurring in Syria, and there were a lot of factions that would be dead in the water if it wasn't for people like Soleimani pushing back to crush ISIS, because they were killing everybody left and right. And so there's this combustible nature that's at play that is under the subtext, because the American media is too lazy to report on this. And frankly, as our people are listening right now, they're probably saying, I don't really want to hear this. This isn't sexy. This isn't what people are talking about. I know that there's a Sunni and a Shiite, but do you know why? And do you know how much it's influenced our foreign policy for the last 40 years or more? Chances are you don't, because it's not something that our American media ever delves into. But it certainly makes 2 + 2 = 4 a lot of times, where people are confused. Why did we arm our enemies? A lot of people say, they always go back to Afghanistan first, right, Obi? They always go back to, why did we arm the Mujahideen against the Russians in the 80s? Well, one, pretty clear. You always want to destabilize the Russian influence. You don't want to allow them to expand their territory any closer to the Middle East. We don't want them to have a foothold in any of the border countries. The second to that is, this was a Sunni faction that came up out of this. Saudi supported, and they became extremist, and they became Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
They became Al Qaeda. They all, and then from there, it became the ultimate thing that they've been doing for 7 centuries or more, which is tribalism. And if you leave the area, tribalism takes its place, and there's a complete vacuum. Now, tribalism taking over Afghanistan is not as big of a deal. So when Trump talks about a tactical pullout in Afghanistan, to me, the longstanding geopolitical damage of doing that, from a natural resource standpoint, from a population standpoint, from an economic possibility of reprisal standpoint, Afghanistan's nothing. It's got nothing. It is nothing. It will be nothing today and tomorrow. Just a whole lot of innocent people are going to die that once sided with us over this long war. And so there's more or less a Vietnam type of situation where you can't go anymore and say with a straight face that the Taliban takes over, they're going to train these Saudi and Jordanian extremist Sunnis that took over and came over for 9/11. I mean, with a straight face, we can honestly say Afghanistan is less of a real pressing crisis for us as a country to stay there and to deal with it. We're doing it out of honor, not out of the fact that this is going to be a danger to us as a nation if we let this thing go. Iraq is a very different situation. I mean, Iraq is a very strategic. We bled thousands into the ground in Iraq as well, and we have a very small base there, but a very strategic base, as you saw recently. You can't just overload in Saudi and in Kuwait and try to activate military response or quick responses or QRFs, things of that nature, or really have a sophisticated MQ-9 Predator drone situation if you don't have reinforcements and intelligence on the ground. And that's what makes Iraq a base that we don't want to lose. And 5,000 troops is not a whole lot of targets, as they say in the Democrat Party, that we're bringing over there. And so I just wanted to introduce all those facts into the mix. The linkage between Iran and Iraq is Iran has since 1980 been at war to take Iraq over. They want the oil fields. They want to rule it. They want to bring it into their ridiculous Islamic Republic theocracy. They want to take it over, and they want to subjugate the Sunni population, and they want to commit atrocities the same way Saddam Hussein did against the Shiites when he was in power. So that's why they more or less are more likely to agree, 60% of the country anyway, that the U.S. has to leave. Now, the Sunnis and this goes for Saudi Arabia, this goes for Jordan, they want America here a little bit in the Middle East, because if not, they know that we're coming to their countries and we're going to take bases in their country, and then that's going to bring attention to their countries. They don't want that. They want a good relationship with us, but they're not willing to. They would just rather have us over in Iraq if it's all the same to you. So what Saudi Arabia is doing now, what bin Salman is doing now, is just trying to smooth the waters out a little bit, because he knows that any continuation of escalation is bad news for the Saudi Arabians. It's bad news for Israel. It's bad news for Jordan. It's bad news for Kuwait. And it's bad news for the Sunni population in Iraq. And so this is what made Soleimani such a big figure to take out. I mean, this guy has been a terrorist abroad. He's been designated the general, the leader of a terrorist brigade. This isn't a general in the armed forces per se that you would recognize in another sovereign nation. Here he is in Syria, showing all kinds of problems and murders and assassinations and terrorist acts to destabilize Lebanon. He is the one, as you saw, that the soldiers of his and the agitators that were Iranian paid and Iranians attacking our embassy were literally writing on the wall, Soleimani is our leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so Soleimani is so thrilled with what he gets results-wise from the news stations that he diverts a flight from Syria, where originally from Syria, and I don't know if he came from Beirut over there, but whatever. He diverts his itinerary. Instead of going back to Iran, he goes to Baghdad so he can congratulate these agitators on their successful mission to disrupt the world news and get the impression out there that the Iraqis want the Americans out of their country. So he has such audacity and insolence that 6 months after telling Trump through the media, no more threats to Iran, no more threats to the Ayatollah, threaten me directly, I'm the one you want to deal with. 6 months later, he is in 6,000 pieces, shredded, along with a lieutenant from another sub force of the Iranians that was participating in the embassy invasion or attempted invasion. And they're dead. And they're dead in Iraq. They're not dead in Iran. They're dead in Iraq. And they're terrorists. Mm-hmm. They're not generals in a sovereign army or any other officers. And they were literally in Syria participating in other acts of violence. And so he comes there to Baghdad airport. The reason he was there, in case you wonder, is he was there to congratulate those who were paid by Iran to do that. And he got off that tarmac, shook hands with his boys. They got into two vehicles. The Predator drone waited until they got off of the infrastructure of the airport till they entered a service road. And then they were hit with two missiles that could have destroyed about 8, 9, 10 different vehicles in a convoy. And it was concentrated to make sure that they got those targets right there. And what that is, Obi, to be clear, is a couple of dead terrorists in Iraq. They were not from Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
but they were sowing all kinds of problems in Iraq, and they attacked the United States embassy. So while that is not an act of war, it certainly seems to me it's a prudent act of self-defense for the commander in chief to make.
I couldn't agree more. It's how many U.S. soldiers was he responsible for killing? I've heard 600.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
And how many more, casualties? In other words, injured? Probably
In the thousands,
thousands.
probably. Yeah.
So good riddance to that guy.
Yeah, and I think as far as the Iraqis are concerned, of course they're going to put out a statement saying, we don't want this, we don't need this. This is an act of violation of our sovereignty. Of course they're going to do that because, hell, we fired out a Predator drone kill on in their border, and we did not give them a heads up. Of course, you can't trust anyone anywhere on this type of operation.
No.
This guy's escaped death. I don't know how many times. He's been reported dead at least 3 times since 2006.
Can't
So
even trust the Democrats either.
no, you can't even trust your own American opposition party. So I think there was no question about it. The reports that are coming out now that Trump initially declined upon hearing that this was a possible destination for Soleimani, and then was, enraged after watching some more footage from the embassy. I don't really buy into that because that's trying to feed into this narrative that the president is mercurial and he's not somebody that you can depend on to make a real decision deliberately and things like that. So I don't believe that that's true. I believe when he saw that he had the opportunity to wipe out a target of this stature, of course he's going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, he does want out of the Middle East. He does want to tamp down the escalation that took place in Syria when we had to make some maneuvers because of Turkey. And if you notice, that went pretty well. The media doesn't really like to report on that. All they want to report about is the ridiculous notion that we turned on the Kurds and left them to die in the fields, and we're traitors and all that. And realistically, none of that came to bear at all. And that was because we never really left. And
Right.
we just kind of repositioned our troops. And so there's what Trump says, and there's what Trump orders, and then there's what the Pentagon actually does. And somehow, in confluence, it's working. And I'm impressed because these are, I think you have seen some people say that this is above and beyond what Reagan was willing to do. This. If Glenn was on tonight, this is where he would take off on that rant. That was the disappointment part about Reagan. He was kind of rattled by the Beirut bombings and the subsequent casualties we took there, and he responded when our Navy was actually attacked. But we could have been a lot more strong in our responses from our country under Reagan, and we weren't. And we had a lot of other things going on to deal with them. We had the Cold War. We had a lot of instability. We had a lot of issues that could have flared up and legitimately turned it into World War III. We do not have that now. We do not have that now. Russians can't really say a whole lot about what it is other than to say they hate it anytime Americans kill anyone anywhere because they know sooner or later that could happen to them. The Chinese don't like it because it sends a message to them that eventually it's going to come to this type of thing. And do you really want to count on your so-called hypersonic nuclear missiles to hit?
It sends a message to
Yeah,
China regarding North Korea there too.
well, it's might as well be hand in hand, courier delivered from Xi to Kim, and that is, be careful how far you push the situation because even our most advanced intelligence on this guy says that we don't know what the hell he's going to do at any given time. And so this is what really confounds me. The Democrats, both in the race for president and for their congressional jockeying purposes, are saying that Trump needs to inform Congress prior to any moves like this of his containment protocols, of his plans moving forward. It's absolutely so antithetical to, well, Obama would have done it, but you just can't list out your intentions, militarily or otherwise, to the world, because that's how they maneuver, and that's how they've worked around American interests for so long. Is because we come out with a bullhorn, we go over to NATO or the UN, and we tell the world what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and then we hope that people stand behind us on it. Well, I can tell you, the reason why all the gnashing of the teeth is going on in Europe is because those bastards don't want to give up the trading with Iran. They have deals. They have deals for oil field explorations. They have deals for jet airliner productions from Airbus. They have all kinds of deals. And they don't like that we pulled out of the Iranian deal. But the sanctions are going to be upheld by us. Therefore, they'll do anything to get around them. But we're not going to allow that. So the harder we make life for Iran, the more it makes life difficult for the Europeans who actually want to do business with them, as sad as that is. So that's why they're pissed off.
And, they are physically closer as well. If blowback really does end up happening.
You saw that in the British tabloids, right? Looked like they were all in apology mode, like they are after 10 people are stabbed on a bridge or something. They go right away and say, let's not make this a Muslim thing, or, whatever. And that the U.S. is escalated unfairly and things like that. Well, it's as much as I go off on the dissertation about the different factions of extremism in both the Shia and Sunni sides, it doesn't really matter when it's compared to just threatening American lives. It doesn't matter what God you worship, if any, what color your skin is. We're gonna come back and we're gonna hit you, and that's always been our doctrine. And now it got a little flaky under Obama. It certainly got distorted under George W. Bush, which robbed a lot of Americans of faith and trust in their government when using the military for any objective. That's what we're seeing on Twitter right now, Obi. I think it's just this leftover inherent mistrust from both W and Obama.
Yeah, I mean, the public has been basically traumatized for 20 years about what happened in Iraq. And, it's hard to blame people for knee-jerkingly saying, no, don't go to war. But it's not war, that's the thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but John Bolton did get fired a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And he's the neocon's neocon. I remember Trump said, there's never been a war that John Bolton doesn't want to fight.
Yeah, I think it's time that we have this discussion about a retreat with honor, or whatever Nixon would call it, and kind of get out of Afghanistan, because people are conflating Afghanistan and Iraq as if they're equal importance for geopolitical purposes, and they're not. They're just not at all. And so there's certain things at play here that I understand. Let's shift our sources and resources a little bit away from the gunfire in Syria.
And like you were saying, Afghanistan is just, it's tribal. That's their customs there. That's what their society is. You can't force them to try to be like, Democrats and Republicans and, give them freedom or whatever. In my opinion, they're always going to be tribal.
Yeah, and what do they have? Nothing. And it's who's going to come in and try to take over the vacuum from an outside country? Nobody. I mean, Russia learned its lesson. Certainly learned it all over again watching us. Trump is hearing from the troops themselves when he's talking to them, and then he's reading these released papers from the Pentagon that were recently printed or leaked or whatever you don't want to call it. But, we've been lying to the American people about holding ground in Afghanistan for a long time. The only alternatives in Afghanistan is to do a serious, serious bombing campaign. And that would look a lot like what Richard Nixon did to North Vietnam, Saigon, and then into Cambodia. And that means a lot of dead civilians. I mean, a lot of dead civilians. The only way to clear out and get some headroom to make a deal is to just commit to massive airstrikes in Afghanistan. And that won't be all that effective in wiping out the reemergence of the Taliban, but it will be effective in cutting down the population at whole by 35%, 40%. Problem is you're killing all women and children, and it's just going to be something that the world won't ever make sense of. So if you wondered why we have such incremental warfare with Afghanistan, it's because the more civilian deaths that occurred, the less the world would tolerate the almost non-existent coalition that's still in Afghanistan. So I say that I don't like the idea of bringing Taliban leaders to Camp David. I think that might have been one of the dumbest things I ever heard. I think that's what really set Bolton off. But that's just
I forgot about that one.
that's just like you got to check the oxygen line and make sure that he's not maybe he doesn't have sleep apnea or something. Just a really bad fucking idea. But moving on from that, there's no reason why we can't call together whatever is left of the coalition and NATO, and just kind of pull out slowly but surely in Afghanistan. Our casualties are too high right now; they're spiking back up, and I just can't tell you a reason. Can't give you a good geopolitical reason. We're not protecting China from coming into Afghanistan and taking over natural resources that we don't want them to be privy to. We're not keeping Russia from trying their 1977 to 80 move again. I don't really know what we're doing there other than honoring the troops who have perished there and the existing American policy that the Taliban trained the terrorists that came to America and participated in 9/11. But let's be clear, they were not from Afghanistan. And that is not something that you're going to see really probably emerge from there again. But it will be a place where terrorism will take root again. Training camp will take root. But the people in the line of fire, going back to what you said, are most likely going to be in Western Europe. And that's a very different problem. But it's not as much our problem anymore. And I think if that's what it takes to shut Tucker Carlson up and all of his ilk, and I say that's what we have to do is look at Afghanistan first. Certainly, we have such a small contingent in 5,000 or less in Iraq, and it's very strategic. And I'm not worried about the feckless, impotent rockets getting lobbed at our green zone right now. I'm not worried about the so-called cyber attacks that Iran is going to attempt to do, as you said. What was it? The library, the official repository of government doc. I mean, give me a break. I don't think anybody's worried about that right now. So, but it does seem like Trump will react. He will be reactive to this rumbling in the base, But you and I have seen this Charlie Brown football routine so many times, right away with the Syrian gas attacks, the 40, the missiles, whatever they're called, that we shot over there.
The Tomahawks.
Yeah, the Tomahawks that were about ready to be expired anyway. And then, of course, came the news that we were going to send 150,000 troops to occupy Syria. We're going to do regime change. All of these things, the latest is the latest and greatest. Oh, and then it's, my God, we're pulling out of Syria. Everybody flips the fuck out then. And my God, we're leaving the Kurds to be slaughtered. ISIS prisoners are going to run wild in Europe, blowing things up. And, of course, none of that happens either. They said that the ISIS fighters were not only going to break out, they're going to take over the oil fields that the Kurds were in control of. Now, that's not happening. I just every time these blue checks get a whiff of blood in the water, they just run off like a bloodhound, into the forest, and you can't get them back. I mean, there's no calling them back. They're hot on the trail. of a menstruating rabbit or whatever the hell it is they like, and good luck getting any sense out of them.
Yep. They they have an opinion and they really like to yell about it. And
Yeah,
so
it's
for
just
some reason, a lot of them, there's enough of them that have a lot of followers that it somehow pollutes my timeline anyway.
yeah, it's right before we got on air. You're saying that sometimes it gets hard to tell the difference between our side and their side about the complaints
Yeah.
about this military terrorist.
Like if I just blind read 20 tweets without telling you who said it,
Yeah,
you couldn't tell.
and then what you need to do is kind of dissect that a little bit, kind of take somebody's timeline or take their Twitter pathology into account and find out what's motivating them a little bit, or how they feel on certain subjects tend to trend a certain way. You'll understand that they are somebody who sympathizes with this narrative that you know, Russia's not the bad person. Russia's a friend, and we should never be in any wars, anytime, anywhere. We need to bring everybody home. Blah 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 blah. And you start to ask yourself, what, who gets something out of this, right? I mean, even if they're not outwardly pro Russia or Russophiles, you look at somebody and they say things like, I'm not voting for Trump because Trump killed this terrorist.
Yeah.
Uh,
Half the time they're foreigners too.
Yeah, it's yeah. It obviously it causes me to think and think out loud. That some of these people, and I think we know who they are, a bunch of them who claim to be Bernie supporters that were really turned off by the DNC and decided to vote for Trump, and they infiltrated our movement through Twitter and Facebook and other ways. And now all of a sudden they're trying to use whatever platform they have to sow dissent into the process and get us a little bit dissatisfied with our president or be suspicious of him. And it's funny. It's just funny how they never ever, like, you break down their timelines all the way back, and they never talked about the danger of Russia going into the old Eastern Bloc states and trying to take back some former Republic USSR states. And they never talk about invasion of Crimea, and they never talk about being concerned about what Russia's doing with exercises in the northern portion of the European borderlines. They just don't have any concerns. As if Putin can do no wrong, we have to watch Trump.
Right. Putin's saving the Christians.
Well, of course, when Putin sent his contingent to Syria, right, to fight ISIS, not to be in the backyard to save their little butt boy Assad. No, it was to fight ISIS. Trust me. So when they came into a sovereign nation, Syria, when Russia did that, now I didn't hear any of these peaceniks complaining that Putin was invading Syria. Did you?
Mm-mm.
No. I wonder why we never heard anything said about that. No.
They were happy.
Yeah, of course. Why
because
not?
They were thinking, oh, if Russia's in there, then we won't invade Syria and take them over.
Yeah, not knowing that Russia for decades has wanted a foothold in the Middle East, and they could never get one because we would always topple whatever possibilities they had interest-wise to get there. And that's really funny to me. And I think that Putin has smartly tried to hone in on some of the dissent and try to be a deal cutter with the Saudis and Israel, but we've taken all that back. I mean, they're very much with the global markets. What does this all really come back to? Like I said, natural resources. When I say natural resources, for the large part, I mean oil and gas. So why has the world changed so much about handling these situations militarily. We're not going to attack Iran because we want their shitty oil fields. Okay, we are the number one producer. May not be the number one exporter yet, or we're close to it, but whatever. We've got it. We've
Mm-hmm.
got it. And if we really wanted oil fields, we just march down to Venezuela and fucking take them, because they couldn't stop us, and they're the best oil fields in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not really looking for it. Don't need it. It's not a big Zionist propaganda. I don't understand any of this stuff the way people talk about it. It is merely an exploitation, unfortunately, but it's an exploitation of tribalist religious beliefs that have been present since 632 AD, and they're not going to go away anytime soon. And as long as these people insist on killing each other, we're going to knock one power out of balance and let the other one take power briefly and then knock them out of balance. Because we're never going to let one get too strong, because if you do, then what you get is you get the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's the cautionary tale. And why is Iran so different than Iraq? Well, there's no similarities at all, except for a bunch of Shiites running around.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is they forced conversion. Once the Shah was out, they slowly but surely just it turned into a theocratic, dictatorship there, and they took their crazy fundamentalist Shiite rules, and just you were either converting from your Persian Christian status to a Persian Muslim, an Islam, a Shiite, or else you were dead, or you were imprisoned, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really 20 million Shiites in Iran. That's why they celebrate in the streets when we kill somebody like Soleimani, and that's why they are always ready to riot against the oppressive government that they have. And we're never going to have warfare on the ground in Iran. It doesn't make any sense anyway. We don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
If it ever came to anything at the border of Iraq, and we loaded up in Kuwait and Iraq with a very large force, they would drop. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard would drop their weapons the same goddamn way Saddam's Revolutionary Guard, or whatever the Republic called themselves, and they will run away. And they will run away, and they will take their uniforms off if they go back to Iran, because they will be killed in the streets by the people who have been imprisoned, beaten, raped, and had their family members killed for decades by the evil that is the Ayatollahs. So I don't have any understanding of why people think that there's a symmetry between how things went with the Iraq war and what it would be with Iran. It wouldn't. I mean, what would war look like with Iran? Much like the president said in a tweet tonight, I've got 52 spots I'll knock right the hell off the face of the earth, and it'll cripple your entire country, and they will rebel in the streets against you, not America. We'll knock out the refineries, which I don't think Lindsey Graham can be any clearer than he has been in his tweets. Is you exist on refining oil. You exist because you play games in the Strait of Hormuz. And once we take away both of these things, there's nothing left of you. There's absolutely nothing left of you. And who's going to come to your rescue? Russia will poo-poo it. China will poo-poo it. There's nobody left to come to your rescue. Turkey doesn't give a shit. All right. Everybody else from Kuwait, Jordan, and the Saudis, none of them, they're all worried about you invading. They want to see you go. So I think that we're not going to even have to push regime change in Iran. I think if Iran pushes us to an act of war, we would simply, in overnight air attacks, probably in concert with the Israelis, knock out every effective capability that they would have. And then if they would attempt to do anything beyond after that, then we would disable any naval assets that they'd have. And then you cease to have a country. And then you just sit back and watch the millions of people that are realistically Persian Christians who were taken over and enslaved into this dogma. And they will take up arms, and they will fight, and they will kill all the oppressors that have held them down.
Hmm.
over the last 40 years.
And it would take about a week.
It would take about a week. There'd still be popping off in the streets here and there. Remember how bad things looked in Lebanon and Beirut when they finally started to really sort out their differences. It got ugly for a while, but if you look at what's gone on over the last 15 years, if you can settle things down and regard, you can have a comeback. You can again be, the French Riviera of the Middle East, like some were calling. Uh,
Hmm.
Lebanon. So you've got all these natural resources in Iran. You've got all of these people who have been just unintentionally oppressed and forced into your religious theocracy of dictatorship and tyranny. They've lost all their rights. They're being spied on every day. And they were, if they couldn't get out in time, they're certainly not sworn Muslims or Shiites at all. What they are unwilling participants in this so-called Islamic Republic. So you hit a couple strategic spots, and you cripple out any remaining income, and then that's when they rebel in the streets, and you can't kill them all because they outnumber you. And will it be over in a week? I don't know. It'll certainly look ugly in a week, and then they'll start getting arms from us because we are, after all, pretty good at that. And we'll do. It's a relatively infantile situation if you think about it. I mean, look how reactive and kind of counterintuitive they are, and just generally unstable with the way that they tend to do things. They really like to sow the seeds of terror throughout the region to try to keep things, you know, unstable across the board. But in reality, they never really coalesce as an honest government. And frankly, they are still in their infancy, if you think about it.
Hmm.
From 1980 to 2020, I mean, it's not a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
And frankly, they don't have a hell of a lot of money. And so it wouldn't take a lot of work. It's a very different animal than what Iraq was. And nobody wants to talk about it because not only is it a complicated subject, but one, it's not clickbait, and
Hmm.
and two, it's politically, it doesn't really, it's not a winner clearly on one side or the other, because if we say something about the Iranians changing their government, then our side and their side are going to say regime change because of what the dumbass Obama did to Gaddafi.
Hmm.
Everybody's going to see it as the worst possible scenario. So, but look at the bright side. We can do this shit. The capabilities that we have are just, the world is only learning a sliver of it. Much of the world, almost no Americans have seen what an MQ Predator drone even looks like.
Hmm.
Um, the ones that have seen it say it is chilling. It is chilling to see this thing, the size of it, the weaponry involved, and to know that there's a pilot sitting in a booth somewhere, maybe 100 miles, 1,000 miles away, flying this thing. It's, you can imagine what it would be to be somebody as unworldly, if you will, in the Middle East, just seeing one of these things. I mean, it would be very, and we could always have drones support the mission
Hmm.
of Iranian protesters, and without ever setting foot on the ground. I mean, they've never seen our capabilities, and war won't look anything like. War is not even the word I'm going to use for it, but it won't look anything like what happened in 2003 in
Hmm.
Iraq. It's just not done that way anymore, man.
Yeah. And we don't want a ground invasion. It's just
Hmm.
Trump has been as clear as he could possibly be about that.
He would never do that. And,
No.
and why would you do that? Because a ground invasion into Iran, you're killing all the same people you're seeking to save.
Hmm.
I mean, and plus the urban areas, the layout, everything in Iran is just set up differently than it was in Iraq.
Hmm.
And for a while, they were doing better in technology and in growth, simply because they had a much more concerted system of oil exploration and participating in the OPEC, and it was a different type of situation. Saddam was seen as more of the unstable dictator type at the time, messing up the oil markets every now and then, and doing all this crazy shit. But it's lately, without Saddam, you don't have that anymore, and that vacuum started to fill, and it was filled with us trying to straighten the shit out for a long time. 15 years trying to straighten the shit out, but now we realize all we really need is 5, 6, 7,000 troops, and still keeping our capabilities in Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Kuwait, so that we're in the area, we can fly these Predator drones in and other types of airstrikes and handle our business. But you're always going to need eyes on the ground. And the day that America, United States of America, the day that America cannot have the political will to have men abroad who signed up that fight for their flag, for the freedom, for their families, for their brothers in arms. The day we can't have 5,000 somewhere where their brothers bled and died into the sand to keep that bulkhead. The day we can't muster 5,000 because our population doesn't have the stomach for it is the day they will really come after us, man. Because this constant feedback you get from China, from Iran, or anyone who has the interest to hurt and harm America, they don't have the stomach for violence. They don't have the stomach for warfare. And when Trump did this, he certainly pushed back on that narrative in a big way. All right, now we should probably take some questions. I think my rants are going on a little long.
Well, I mean, I think we just, to me, we're already at the bottom of that subject, and I'm perfectly content with what Trump did. If anything, I think it's good. Except for maybe if Iran does something really crazy, then that would be a bad thing.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. What is a natural response here from Iran? I mean, they've already been, and I've been talking about this for months, they've already been escalating. How many times do they have to escalate? And, realistically, when they shot down our large drone, very expensive drone, was shot down, and they were so cavalier about it. And that's on the heels of doing other things like holding up our ship, or the British ships and other ships of our allies in the Strait of Hormuz. How many times are they going to do it? Now they kill a military contractor who was an American. I don't think so. I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, what if they go after they've said that they might look going after one of our destroyers or our carriers. That would be, I mean, what Iran wants to do at this point is they are so used to proxy wars like Yemen that they're not going to be able to do anything of consequence directly against an American target that we know that they did. I mean, if you've noticed, they've denied everything. They've lied about everything that they've done. And when they get really caught with satellite images, like with shooting down the drone, they say, well, your drone was in our airspace. They lie about that shit. But, they are going to struggle because they had no idea that Trump had the temerity to do this. They're going to struggle with the correct response because the world at large says this is a dangerous escalation. But the whole thing is, the whole world is saying, but you stormed the U.S. embassy attempting to get in there.
Right.
You wrote Soleimani as our leader on the walls. You didn't even deny the fact that you're sending these agitators in there, and that most Iraqis, certainly all Sunni Iraqis, want nothing to do with your shit. And that's a lot of Iraqis, by the way. So I would question, what are they going to do? I mean, the green zone has been enhanced, reinforced. They're going to be firing their their old choppy rockets that some kid made in high school and a science project, and try to land close enough to one of our reinforced areas in the green zone and harm a soldier. I just don't think, judging by where these missile rockets or whatever that they've shot, the munitions, I'll just call it, in our green zone since the attack, they haven't gotten close to causing any real damage. And I think it's just kind of an appeasement factor for the hardliners in their country. And what would they realistically do? I mean, you kill one American military contractor, which they probably didn't even intend to do.
Mm-hmm.
You kill one military contractor, your top general and one of his lieutenants of a subforce are blown into 1,000 different pieces. To them, if that's a proportionate response from America, what if you're an Iranian politician, or if you're the Ayatollah, what are you thinking if you actually kill a military soldier? What are you thinking if you actually attempt to harm part of the American or British? They'll probably go after the Brits, to be honest with you, either on the ground in the United Kingdom, or they'll try something in the Strait to disable one of their ships, or maybe engage them in a naval battle, because what they want, I think, is to get the European allies to turn against us, because we've already got this antagonism of us pulling out of the Iranian nuclear agreement, which they won't pull out of, and they're trying to somehow renegotiate it without us, which makes no sense, because we will still stick with all of the sanctions, and we will put those sanctions on anyone, Germany, France, the UK. They try to get around what we pulled out of, we're going to hit them with sanctions. So there's already a point of antagonism, because they want to do business with Iran. They want that deal back in place. So now Iran thinks if they can go after the Brits and maybe disable a vessel or something like that, the Brits, as we know, are like the new French. They surrender so fast, it's unbelievable. They don't want to ever call anything what it is. And they may attempt to do something on, much easier, by the way, as you pointed out, to get into Western Europe to commit some sleeper cell terrorist act than it is to do over here. And I have no doubt that the Iranians have sleeper cells in the United States of America. We know that. But I also have no doubt that they know that pulling that card again means that we have the moral authority to destroy your government. So there's no way you're going to hide. You're no way in hell right now. All the threats that are being made, there's no way in hell if you bomb something in America or you kill innocent American civilians, there's no way in hell the Americans are going to be like, oh, well, the Iranians said it wasn't them. No, we're going to use that immediately.
Yeah, and in this case, Trump has already told him exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah. Well, that'll be even worse. I mean, Trump is saying if you go after our allies, if you hit us anywhere, certainly even if you hit us here, but if they did, I can tell you, it'll be over. It'll be game over if there's a terrorist. So they won't do that. I mean, I think that was a lesson they took away.
They're not even that stupid.
No, I mean, yeah, 9/11 ended up destroying like 3 different continual Sunni extremist groups that try to grow out of this whole thing. And they knew that they blew their load on that one. So trying to come here, not to be a bigger deal to them is to get Europe to turn on us. So if they can kill a couple British citizens, what do you think Mayor Khan's going to do? Mayor Khan is going to come out and say, I can't even blame them. Muslims everywhere understand why this happened. It happened because Donald Trump did what he did and assassinated illegally a fine general from Iran. And they're going to make excuses right away if they get attacked. And that's the saddest thing about it. My only hope is they attack them militarily and that there's no death, and that if it's a naval accompaniment ship in the Strait of Hormuz that gets hit by the UK, then we will assist. But then the UK's in with us, and they can't back out. So I think the most logical play here is for them to get their Hezbollah connections out into Europe and commit some mayhem.
You know what? Just as we're talking about this, about 8 minutes ago, Trump tweeted,
Hmm.
"The United States just spent $2 trillion on military equipment. We are the biggest and by far the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
If Iran attacks an American base or any American, we will be sending some of that brand new, beautiful equipment their way, and without hesitation."
which, which, if you take out everything but the Syrian tomahawks, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because he says that all the time about all situations. But now, all of a sudden, you're reading it differently if you're
Mm-hmm.
an intelligence agency in one of these countries. And Tim in here asked a very good question. Does this reinforce the likelihood of Netanyahu actually being able to forge on a third try a government? The answer is yes, 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 and yes, because it'll fortify the worst fears in Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and they will back a strong, strong pro-military leader, pro settlement leader, because they will see it as an ultimate threat, and they're prepared. I mean, nobody is more prepared than Israel
Mm-hmm.
for Iran going too far, because we talked about, Trump talks about these 52 different sites.
Hold on. Speaking of Trump, I'd like to just say, hey, POTUS.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You never know. You never know. He was watching
some things pretty
Pasobik's.
definitively.
He was watching Pasobik's Periscope.
Yeah, he was, and I texted Jack on New Year's. That was New Year's Eve when he retweeted half of Jack's timeline. And so I texted Jack and I said, Jack, the president just retweeted half your timeline. You don't even drink, and it's New Year's Eve, so I'll have to go out and have a couple for you. So that I did. That I did. It was a big night for him. But going back to what I was saying, I would say, yeah, Tim, definitely. It looks like Netanyahu would finally be able to put a coalition together, because I think the hardliners would come together and get over some of the problems that we have between the ultra-Orthodox and non-Orthodox factions in Israeli government coalitions, and know that this is an existential. For Israel, it's existential, completely. It's life or death. And if Iranians in the streets start to topple that government, who do you think is going to get the last missiles fired before that government fails? Iran knows. Iran knows where those are going to come from, and they know that they're going to be the target because they can't reach us. So it's something that we'll always work with the Iran, or the Israel will always be in the loop on what we're doing, because that'll be the lash out point directly for government military use of force by Iran. They don't have the balls to do anything else. Matter of fact, they don't have the munitions or the equipment to do anything else. So they can do their little cyber attacks. They can do their little, cigarette boat chase arounds in the Strait of Hormuz. But in the end, things are gonna collapse from within. And if they hit us in any way, we go to the UN and we strong arm increased sanctions against them. Not just the sanctions that we have in place due to pulling out from the nuclear agreement. We're going to hit them with sanctions that our allies are not going to be able to say no to. And that's going to crush whatever remains of their economy. And if that doesn't work, Obi, then you go back to the Lindsey Graham theory of say goodbye to your refineries. And that's the last bastion of income that you have as a country.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see, right? 2020. Oh, and here's the other canard that the left is saying, that Trump is using this all as a distraction from the impeachment, right?
Mm-hmm. Kind of ridiculous, I guess, because we've never, and I think Susan Rice unwittingly admitted it. If you listen to her saying we never had the opportunity, she could kind of defensively saying, why didn't you guys do anything about Soleimani? She said we never had the opportunity. We never had the chance to do it. Kind of, if you read into that a little bit, you don't have to read into it. It is what it is. It was a target of it was a target of opportunity, and we took it.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did we take it, and didn't take it in a half-assed fashion either. And it could not have been executed better because it came on the heels of our embassy being essentially invaded by Iranians who were working for Soleimani and his underlings. He leaves Syria, where we've got problems by him anyway, and decides that he wants to congratulate his lieutenants on the ground for getting all the news uh, and all the publications to cover the story. And we greeted him with two things that look a lot like hellfire to me. And there wasn't much left of them. By all accounts, that bothers a lot of these Muslims when when their head is detached from their body when they leave this earth. And believe me, it was more than his head that was detached from his body. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about getting 5 or 6 people in a line of sight. The weapons that were deployed from that MQ were significant enough to take out more than a 2-car convoy and more than 5 or 6 people. It
Mm-hmm.
was a make sure you don't miss type of operation.
Yeah, no civilians killed
Well,
except.
absolutely. I mean, not even infrastructure damage to the actual airport, which would have
Mhm.
pissed off the Baghdadis and the prime minister. They waited, tracked it, left. They left the tarmac. They got visual as they were greeting each other, put into vehicles. They were getting onto a service road, and that just turned into a tiny little crater. And it was a thing of beautiful execution, and it wasn't a lucky shot. Um, I don't. We'll never know who did it. Like we're not supposed to know who really shot Obama or Osama bin Laden. Tragic how many times people make that mistake. Um, I don't know. I have a member of my family who flies these drones and does these types of missions. But even if I had 12 beers in him, which wouldn't be too hard to do in this case, he can't give that information up and never would. But they know what they're doing. I've discussed the overall. He's a former Apache pilot. Anyways, already has kills that he's had gotten over in Iraq and Afghanistan. So
Mhm.
it's a little different from that mentality when you're flying, but it's very much according to these pilots who are doing this work. It's very much the same type of commitment and awareness that you're engaged in an act of battle.
Mhm.
And these people that are flying the drones are not off-duty U.S. Air pilots. Okay, they're not Southwest pilots who decided to take on weekend duty in the reserves. These are military pilots, well trained and deadly as all hell. And they are deploying technology that the world really thinks they might know, but they won't really know, particularly in that region, until they see it and hear it. And then it's devastating. It really is devastating. And that's how we're moving forward. That's what we spent a shitload of money on
Mhm.
over the last 7, 8, 9 years. It was the one thing Obama was investing in. And before you hammer Trump for the drone killings, remember he's nowhere near the drone killing totals that Obama put together.
Yeah, Obama liked to drone weddings.
Yeah, weddings, American citizens were killed
Mhm.
by Obama. I think with the impeachment stuff, working backwards for them, all of the 99 words in 1999 said about the Clinton impeachment in the Senate coming back to haunt people like Chuck Schumer and others, and then you have this type of mentality where Obama's doing this and that, and now all of a sudden it's a bad thing. Obama's not only kept us in all these wars, he actually started the Syrian conflict and lied about a red line, if I'm not incorrect, Obi. And that took a lot of the clarity out of the situation where bad guys in the world, thought that they could push the envelope a little bit further.
Mhm.
So I don't understand the consternation. I don't understand the mentality that this is an act of war. It is certainly not an act of war. Again, I will tell you that this is a designated terrorist who was the head of a designated terrorist group, and he was in part responsible for the attack on a U.S. embassy in Iraq, and then he had the audacity to land in Iraq within 24 hours of the cessation of events at the embassy. It sounds a lot like he got a terrorist who was on the. I think I heard he was the number one most wanted terrorist in the world after our Baghdadi hit. So he just keeps shooting for the top, knocking the top fruit out of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem with it. I just don't have any problem with it at all. I think it's a new world. It's a weak Iran, and it's if anything, it's time to start the discussion about what this means for Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he can end our perpetual presence in Afghanistan in a way that makes sense and that is bipartisan and is appreciated by our friends in NATO, I think we've got to give those people in that country a chance to solve their own shit for the first time in 20 years. And that is something that we've tried everything else. But I just don't think going into large scale infantry attacks or using airstrikes and killing civilians is a way to improve our standing in that country. And now we may have to continue to send money. And as long as that government is at least showing some presence of democracy and pushback on Taliban policies that stripped everyone of their rights and little girls couldn't get educations and rapes were occurring everywhere, then I think that we can do it just by having some contractors around and some CIA sources. I think it's time now to look at Afghanistan, Obi. That's the irony of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if anything, the pressing situation with Iran that's occurred and looking at our troop deployments in Iraq and what's going on in Syria, I think the time now is to really have a serious consideration in the Trump administration about a pull out in Afghanistan.
Like you said, anything to shut Tucker Carlson up right now would be nice.
Really ignorant commentary from him. Really ignorant commentary. But my fuse is already pretty short for that shit. It's not every day where I'm like, when Hannity, he was actually he was off that night, right? He called in.
He called in and then he went live the next night.
Yeah. So I tuned in just to hear the Hannity part. I didn't really, the rest of it was.
I mean, the Hannity part, that's basically like a press release from the president.
Yeah, I wanted to hear, that type of talking point side to see how we were going to roll that out up against what we knew Tucker Carlson had or was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm kind of happy about it because neither one of them, I think, are people that I'm always going to go to for any type of information analysis. But certainly, I'm monitoring, what other people's opinions are, especially these people that are getting all the numbers. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know what the people. So my small allocation of people that follow me, I know that they listen to these people. So it helps me understand what they're hearing and helps me shape talking points for my analysis based on what they might be hearing between Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, and Tucker Carlson. So I don't really watch them to like get insight or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps me understand. And that's why I tune in when you're playing them, is because my wife can't stand it. Like I cannot put Sean Hannity on.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's sitting there. So I get to put in an earbud in one ear and listen on your Periscope, and I get the best of both worlds until it's an annoying guest, and then I pop out the earbud and watch whatever's on TV.
Yeah.
So, I would just say that Tucker is he's not lacking the intellectual capability, because we know he has it. He's lacking the intellectual honesty. That to me is offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look in the camera under the eyes of your viewer and you say things that he said, and you notice that he's trying to take this real tempered, toned down speaking pattern, like his cadence, everything is slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the laughing, chuckling Tucker of old. And that's all part of the act. And I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think he probably spent too much time on Crossfire with Pat Buchanan, and these protectionist types, they just don't want to get it. And I sometimes I actually question their patriotism.
It was interesting. I know you don't, but sometimes I'll tune in to Alex Jones just to see what he's saying.
Mhm.
He had a more measured, tempered response than Tucker Carlson to this whole thing.
Yeah, and what was that?
Oh, he doesn't want to start a war, but he doesn't think this was starting a war. You know, basically, Iran started a war with us, more or less, by trying to, you know, r- overrun the embassy. He agrees it is a measured response. It had to do something.
Yeah, and for him to say that, that's something.
All of his callers disagreed. They're all calling and saying, "Why are we in wars for Israel?" Or "Why don't we worry about our country and not wars halfway around the world?"
It's kind of funny that they say that, because Israel doesn't need us to do anything to start a war in Iran for them. We have held them back.
Yeah, they would
We have
have done
held
it
them back
years
many
ago.
times. Exactly. Bush did it. Obama did it. I'm not sure if Trump has done it yet, but he probably will have to. Um, it just goes to show you how weak and unstable this whole government is, and how few their real resources are that are extractable and usable and producible for them. And listen, it's a different world, man. The petrodollar used to be their number one target. I mean, the fact that we Kissinger set up the system where the United States ruled the world off the petrodollar, and the oil business was a big deal, and we had to protect our interests across the Middle East, and we had to
Mhm.
keep OPEC in check so that we didn't get oil prices out of control, as we did in the past. That'll never happen again, because our oil exploration and our production has now, so it's we can't get it out fast enough, so we're
Mhm.
capping wells until we can get all the pipelines built. We could be facing a day where we have east and west coast ports, LNG ports, where we're shipping LNG to our southeast allies. And
Mhm.
it's a long haul, but it'll be a hell of a great thing to get them off the Iranian refinement process with Russian oil and things of that nature. So we need to keep doing what we're doing. We're doing it right.
Mhm.
We're doing it right. And it's a different world because we don't have to worry about that anymore. We're energy independent, which makes us a completely different animal from the military geopolitical standpoint. Usage, supply and demand. Um, Supply and demand for U.S. military is actually much more of an equitable question these days than supply and demand on the markets for oil. I mean, if you have this major incident where we blow up uh, the top general in Iran, and the market dips about 200 points and then bounce, set to bounce right back up, and oil gets a rare bump because of it, and that's only because of the refinement components in Iran. So listen, it's a completely different scenario. You can't hold us or the markets hostage anymore, and it's a really fun thing to watch. I don't like to talk about things like somebody getting whacked in a term of it's a good thing to watch, but in reality, listen, the biggest movies in America are always going to be heroic stories of fighting for the right thing, fighting against all odds. Read the book by Marcus Luttrell,
Mhm.
Soul or Lone Survivor, rather. Watch the movie where Mark Wahlberg plays him.
Mhm.
Of course, with Kyle's story, and Sniper, the American Sniper, whatever the hell it's called, by Clint Eastwood, directed. And these are all real people and real stories. And yeah, we've lost a lot of guys. I mean, one of
Yeah,
my
I mean,
very good
13 hours.
13 hours, great film, which I don't. Hollywood always kept that one under the blanket because they didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a fantastic freaking film, and there's more like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have friends. One of my good friends who does have existing injuries and a Purple Heart, among other things, from serving in Iraq, and an IED blew up under his ass and changed his life forever.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't get this mentality that people have, that, oh, go ask a soldier before you get us into another war. I could tell you a soldier who fought for his life and still has, some injuries to get through as a young man, but still a successful guy, very successful guy. He's going to tell you he would do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for flag first, family second, and then it's for the brothers that he served with. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing you see in these movies where Kyle says, to his wife, I got to go back. I can't leave him there. I just can't leave him out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of jumped the spot. He took his brothers above his family at times, and then in parts of Lone Survivor, where they know they're going to die, but they get himself up and say, you squared away. Yeah, I'm squared away. They got pieces of their head missing, and it's just ridiculous. But then the guys, just says to the other guy, make sure my wife knows that I love her and that I died with my brothers. I mean, this is the type, particularly with special forces.
Mm-hmm.
These are the guys that are generally out there, and they spend their whole lives training for the moment to help secure their country, or a measure of freedom for anyone, really. And when people talk on Twitter and they kind of reduce them to a house cat,
Mm-hmm.
and say that no, they should be home, they should be right here, they should never leave the country. I think that's problematic in a whole bunch of ways. And I think, like I said before on many broadcasts, I think you're projecting a lot when you say stuff like that. Or my son's in the military. Who are you to say we should go off and fight this war? Why don't you send your son, or whatever? I think that type of stuff is it's anti-intellectual. I think it's an emotional debate. And I think in times of potential, war or conflict, military conflict, I think the worst type of debate to have is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you reduce your level of understanding and reduce your level of ability to correspond whatever point you're trying to make. Because when you deal with absolutes, you're always going to be absolutely wrong, because absolutes don't really exist, particularly in the world of politics, geopolitics.
No, only in philosophy, maybe.
Yeah, absolutes in philosophy are very rare. I mean, there are none. I mean, if you want to read Descartes and decide that there are some, or if you want to deep dive into niche and find out something that you think you agree with. But anyway, for the most part, in real political theory, even, there is no such thing as an absolute. It's always gray.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand these people who have this argument that there's no scenario unless we are attacked. And they seem to have this Pearl Harbor 9/11 type of image engraved in their brain, like we must be physically attacked in the homeland,
mm-hmm.
for it to be. But you don't want to let it get that far,
right?
And why did it get that far for Pearl Harbor to happen? Is because we signed a non-intervention agreement in Europe with Germany not to provide any reinforcement or weapons to our allies to fight back against the Third Reich.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it happened. And Neville Chamberlain let the ball really get rolling with the appeasement. And all of that shit in the World War II example is too easy to point out. That's
mm-hmm.
low-hanging fruit. But there are other examples of it as well, as when our FBI, our CIA, our Department of State, everybody couldn't get their shit together when it was right under our noses. We got a bunch of Muslims in here on temporary visas taking flying lessons that don't need to, tell their instructors they don't need to learn how to land.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it shouldn't take too much for us to have figured out what was going on there. Now we find out retroactively that the Saudis did try to warn us, that the Israelis did try to warn us, and all these other things. You don't wait till it gets to that point. That's
mm-hmm.
how it gets to the point of coming here. So the way you stop that, the way you stop a Pearl Harbor, the way you stop a 9/11 is make sure you make strategic deployments where they need to be. And if you are the person that thinks that we have no one in our country, no special forces, no one who should be deployed, then that's almost past the point of an intellectual discussion. You're almost bereft of all intellectualism to where there's a sensible rejoinder for me to continue the conversation with you. And it's not a point that I want to continue to hone in on, because I have nothing else to say to somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we've pretty much gotten to the bottom of that subject for now. I mean, I'm sure there'll be something else in 2 hours that comes up, some other ridiculous story, but
Yeah, somebody's saying something in here about Kenya TV and Al Jazeera. Like, I don't know.
I'm trying to look that up right now, actually.
I don't see anything.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
I don't know. Something. The person in the chat said something like a terrorist took over a base or something like that, but I don't know what that means. Al Shabaab attack on Camp Simba in Kenya. Host
Okay.
U.S. and Kenya soldiers. Al Shabaab. That's another one of those um,
Yeah.
Iranian-backed groups, isn't it?
I'm sure it is. I have to look it up to be sure, but I'm sure that they're going after the weakest targets anywhere in the world
Mm-hmm.
with the weakest reinforcements. So, you know, that won't turn out too well for me.
No.
Bus attack. Kenyan spokesman on bus attack in Lamu. Let's see what the hell this is. I don't see any base being taken over. A number of people killed during the Lamu bus attacks stands at 3, and this is saying Thursday, but it's reporting it right now. Beefed up, blah blah blah. They put 5 attackers. 4 of them were all rounded up and killed. Okay.
Huh.
That's how it goes for you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, apparently Kenyan security forces have been carrying out Operation Linda Boni or Linda Boni. I don't know how to pronounce that. Which interesting name for Kenya, though, which was meant to flush out al-Shabaab operatives from the Boni forest.
Huh.
Despite the bus attack, they're saying the operation is successful. So unless there's another one here that we're missing. Yes, we see a lot of this hackers attacking U.S. government website, and then you find out what website it is, and everybody kind of chuckles. I don't see anything else from.
No. False alarm.
Okay, here you go. There you go. There were attempts to storm the U.S. naval base in Kenya. And this is a terrorist press release.
Huh.
In the early hours of Sunday morning, an elite group of soldiers, yes, sure, from al-Shabaab launched a daring dawn raid on U.S. naval base known as Camp Simba in Lamu County, Kenya. The base is home to hundreds of U.S. military personnel and Kenyan soldiers. with many launch pads for the American crusade against Islam in the region. By the blessing of Allah, the exalted, the Mujahideen fighters covertly entered enemy lines. What is this like? I mean, this is unbelievable. This is like Baghdad Bob all over again.
Yeah.
Successfully stormed the heavily fortified military base and have now taken effective control of the base. They've inflicted severe casualties on both American and Kenyan troops stationed there. We'll see. The attack, it says, is citing the Al-Quds, which is the Soleimani group, will never be Judaized. Wow, I never knew that was a word. Resulting in destruction of U.S. military equipment. I wonder how that will turn out for you, Shabab. So we'll keep an eye on that. So is someone telling me that this is a proof that a backfire on the military strike? I would ask that we get something a little more with a little more gravitas before we start saying that. You know what's going to happen now, Obi, is it's like every little thing that pops up in the world, every soft target that gets hit, it's going to be, see, I told you so, an escalation,
Mhm.
an escalation, it's an escalation. But nobody cared. Nobody cared when they shot down $130 million freaking drone.
Mhm.
Nobody cared when they commandeered like 17 American soldiers and like held them under arrest in violation of international law. No one cared when they attacked British oil tankers. They just don't give a shit unless we do something. Then we're the devil, and I'm talking about our own people.
Mhm.
It's insane. I do not. None of the major websites are picking up on it quite yet, if I'm correct. Now I feel like that Steve Lookner guy.
Yeah. Agenda free TV.
Mm.
It's like 5 minutes of dead air, and he's like, "Oh wait, I found a
Yeah,
tweet about it."
he's like staring at the screen all the time. It's pretty funny. Okay, yeah, we got some blue check saying that the militants have launched a dawn attack.
Mhm.
Suicide car bomb reportedly breached the entry explosion sent. So let's see. They took Al Shabaab is claiming they took control of a part of the base.
Mhm. And there's pictures. It doesn't look like much of a base.
No, it really doesn't. It really
It looks
doesn't.
like some little like one step up from a hut.
Yeah, I'm seeing a live photo here, Obi, and it looks like it's outside. The explosion took part outside the actual base.
Mhm.
So I think it was probably stopped at a Jersey barrier, at some type of check-in zone, and then they detonated. Which is kind of odd. Like I said before, you know, the Shiites are less likely to blow themselves up.
Right.
That's more or less kind of the fundamentalist Sunni extremists that do that. So interesting. Interesting. Maybe I don't know. I'm going to take a quick peek at Periscope and see if Steve Lookner is on dealing with this, just because I want to see if. Come on, Steve. Oh, Lookner is not on yet. I'm very disappointed.
That's crazy.
I know. So, come on, Steve. This is your moment, man. Like, I swear to God, a tree falls down in Cedar Rapids and the fucking guy spends an hour and a half on it. Come on, we got a big.
He did a whole
Come
stream
on.
about Trump tweeting out the 52 targets tweet.
Maybe he's, well, you know what? Maybe he's a Patriots fan. He's drowning his sorrows right now.
Oh, could be. Yeah, that was. I used to care about football in like high school, It's been a long time since I cared, but
Hey, retired deputy or whatever. We're not making fun of you, man. We appreciate it. We believe you. We believe you, and we found it. Appreciate the heads up. There has been an attack in Kenya, and I believe it's been overstated by the Al Shabaab version of Baghdad Bob. So, I'm not making fun of you. I really appreciate you giving us a heads up. So thank you. Okay, everybody's telling me Lookner will be on. I swear to God, if everybody leaves us and goes to Lookner, I'm gonna flip out. I'm never coming back on again. Never coming back. I'm
just
done.
hang it up.
I'm done. I'm absolutely done.
That guy has to be the dorkiest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was part of the original RSBN.
Mm-hmm.
He had a disagreement, which that happens in the new media,
Right.
the right media or whatever the hell.
Well, he tries to be like down the middle politically, if anything, apolitical.
I find riding fences gives me splinters, buddy.
It's boring because then you can't have an opinion on anything.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty much squared away by telling everybody my thoughts on this whole issue. If you want to move on to other topics, we certainly have some. I've made the bold calculation that Nancy Pelosi will, by week's end, give up the articles of impeachment to the Senate. I'm sticking to that. It may not happen on Wednesday. My belief it'll happen on, by Thursday. So we'll see if that thing comes true. So no one's calling you a nut, retired deputy. We're not calling you a nut. If you're new here, just know that Obi and I are both smart asses, and well, you're lucky Glenn's not here because he's even more of a smart ass, and I haven't heard from him. So a real quick aside, is he having an enjoyable time on his excursion?
Yeah, he said he's bored, but it's good to get away from the house every once in a while.
Leave it to Glenn to go to Vegas and get bored.
Really?
Well, I told him before embarking that, when you don't eat buffet food and you don't gamble and you don't drink and you don't like hookers, not really sure what you're going to be up to in Las Vegas. So there we have it.
It's not going to end up like the Hangover movie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The exact opposite.
The exact opposite. I think there's a whole lot of sleeping going on. Yeah, we should do a cover of that song. A whole lot of sleeping going on. So, but I did want to talk about that a little bit. I think that Mitch McConnell had another good floor speech. I hope you were privy to it a couple days ago.
I saw that it was happening, but I didn't catch it.
And it was just more or less another gallon of gasoline over the hot burning garbage being tended to by Nancy Pelosi. I found it pretty enjoyable, and it's something I think we could probably dispense with the drama. I just don't think it's going to be held on to. Is he impeached? Is he not impeached? I'm tired. Like, how many articles can Turley write versus like Larry Tribe and all these other people, Dershowitz? It's really pretty simplistic, because it's extra constitutional, meaning it's not there for your actual discernment one way or another, or even a divination. You work with what you got, and if you don't have it, you're working outside of the existing rules. So the existing rules are where you go to when you're working outside the box, and the existing rules say in the Senate that they must have the articles in hand. And that was the point that I think Mitch McConnell kind of laid to rest today or the other day in a speech. So we have that pretty much settled. I don't think they made any headway with this whole, we found new emails. That say Trump knew all about this, holding up the, this isn't going to fly. Trying to hold on, and there's not going to be any witnesses. We're going to use the 99 model. The 99 model is basically get through the opening statements by both defendant and prosecution, and then decide if you need witnesses, and then vote. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We don't need the witnesses. We'll hear the opening case from both, and we'll deal with it. We'll be done with it, and then we'll move on to other things. And I think that's probably hopefully going to happen be done and wrapped up by Valentine's Day.
You're not worried about the 3 defectors?
Oh, absolutely not.
Like,
no.
Who's that? Collins, Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, I guess.
No, I mean, I think that they are defectors in name only. I think that they just wanted to stay off of Lindsey Graham's resolution. And I think they wanted to question whether or not it's proper for McConnell to say that he was not an impartial juror. He was a senator of a political process. So I don't think they're going to fall out of line. I think they're going to have 53, maybe 54 with Doug Jones. And maybe, if we're all feeling generous, that Manchin is looking at the latest polls, even though he was just reelected, I think that you might have 55 agreeing at least to the rules. I think that's they might vote for 1 or 2 of the articles when it comes down to calling up the vote, being Doug Jones and Manchin. But I think they might have a pretty good shot at agreeing with the Republicans on the rules from 1999 because they want to appear bipartisan. No, Peters is going to stick with the Democrats and go down, Fish. So you're lucky. James has a real, I want to say, like, boot on the throat here. John James does in Michigan, running with an operation that he just already had in continuity from 2 years ago. I think the money's coming in. He's telegenic, photogenic. He knows how to read from a teleprompter. He doesn't mess it up off the cuff. He's a soldier in a time where the military is certainly getting its fair share of respect. And I think that Gary Peters is just a nobody. And it's the exact type of senator that tends to get wiped out in an intense presidential election. I think it's too late for Peters to come back. I think Trump would have to tank in Michigan for John James to not win. And I think John James needs to now recognize that Trump is the ticket to winning. I think he needs to get his mind in a different place than where Ron Johnson was in Wisconsin in 2016, to where Toomey was in Pennsylvania in 2016, Rubio in 2016 in Florida, and Richard Burr in North Carolina in 2016. I think he needs to put himself in a, I'm not going to try to remain middle of the road guy here. I'm going to embrace Donald Trump because I think that's actually how you're going to win. I don't really think it's, hey, I'm an African-American, I'm going to try to get some Detroit suburb votes. That's not going to push you over the finish line. So that's my free advice, which should cost a lot of money, Obi. But, embrace Trump, embrace your military background, embrace Gary Peters' anonymity, and steamroll his ass, because I think it's going to help get an extra few voters out here and there to push Trump over the finish line.
Yeah, and we know Trump. We know he's going to campaign in Michigan a lot.
Let me say another thing, Obi. We know Doug Jones is done unless we somehow end up with Jeff Sessions as the nominee down there, which I don't believe is going to happen. But Doug Jones gone, and then having a real fight on their hands in Michigan, which they act like it, including the media, acts like it's not happening. The fact is, for them to take over, they need to knock out Tillis in North Carolina, Collins in Maine, McSally in Arizona, and Gardner in Colorado, and manage to hold on to Doug Jones and keep a Gary Peters. But in actuality, we may lose 2 out of those 4 that I mentioned, but we're going to win the Alabama one. And now it looks like we have a pretty damn good shot at winning Michigan. And if we win Michigan with John James, in my opinion, we're going to win Iowa again with Joni Ernst. And if that's the case, we're going to have, at minimum, 53 senators again. And that will mean a lot more judges going to the bench over 4 years. And as I've said before,
Woo-hoo.
the House, I mean, a lot of people are hedging their bets, saying it's really hard to take back the House again. Not in a presidential, not when you only need 18 seats, and not when you're given a roadmap like impeachment votes. In districts where Trump won at 16, you have people voting for impeachment. I mean, you're flipping. You got 31 of those, right? You're flipping half those. In a good economy, you're flipping half. You're 15. You're almost home, brother. I mean, what do you need? You got to knock off a couple of them. Well, there's been a lot of Republican retirements. Have you seen the PVIs on the Republicans? Have you seen the Cook rating on these Republican seats? All but 2 are like double-digit R seats, and double-digit R seats with a popular president in the Republican Party. They win. All right, so stop telling me about our 2-to-1 retirement issues again. This is what I do. All right. So I think we have a very good shot. And I'm the guy who told you first, very, very early in 2017, that we were probably going to lose the House a year and a half later. And we did. I'm going to be on the forefront here, the tip of the spear, and tell you we got a pretty good chance of not only keeping 53 in the Senate, we got a pretty good chance of having a relatively small majority in the House as well, which is important, but not nearly as important as holding on to the Senate, holding it with enough give or takes that we can deal with this Mitt Romney, Murkowski, because they're going to be there no matter what. Going into the Supreme Court nomination of Gingrich replacement and all the other, high level federal court appointment processes, we need to keep that buffer there. And I'm as enthusiastic as I've been, I think, since the midterms have been over. Right now, I mean, I'm watching the economy. I'm watching the world markets respond to our economy. I'm watching China respond to our economy. And then, 3 weeks after the first joint military exercises of China, Russia, and Iran, we incinerate the second most powerful Iranian. I think that that's a pretty telling message, not only to dissidents in the area, but gives a heads up to Russia and China as well.
Yeah, and then we look at the blowout election that just happened in the UK.
Yeah, that's going to be really tricky, because sometimes it's nice to have a majority. Sometimes too much of a majority causes problems, and I think that's what we have there. It's not going to be as easy as everybody thinks. It's slam dunk on a Brexit, but a lot of the losses that were dealt to the Liberal Labour Party were the SNP, the Scottish National Party, kicking them out of long-held Labour seats in Scotland. Now they want their own second shot at a referendum to get out and be free of the UK, and they want to go to the European Union.
Right. They want back in. They want to stay in the EU, right?
So, yeah, we've got that. I mean, so think about that. Just because the numbers have changed doesn't mean that we're going to automatically have a coalition to stand together and give EU the finger that it should get. My concern is I don't think things are going to get done in time for us to get a unilateral trade agreement done with the new and independent United Kingdom with Boris Johnson. But knowing that if we win re-election, knowing that that's there, meaning that our economy is going to continue to improve after that, that's kind of a nice, warm, settling feeling. I would just rather have it happen prior to. But we know that we're going to have USMCA, and we know that a lot of that's going to be enacted, and that's going to guard against any consumerism, panicking, index panicking when things get shaky in the usual quarters in the third quarter going up to an election. I think that knowing that that's kicking in it's going to bump up the optimism again. And I think the only area, and I don't think Tim's on anymore, and I really have to have Tim on with us some night. They're pushing this manufacturing sector decreases and stuff like that. Well, this is just a natural reaction to the tariff standoff with China. And once we get past that, hopefully part of phase 2 deals get done after this phase 1 deal. Phase 1 deal is basically they're going to buy a shitload of ag products that I don't even know that we can keep up with. But phase 2 is going to get into the other things that will really help us build up our manufacturing sector again and get past some of these tariff problems where, a lot of our guys were bringing in cheaper partial products so they can make a final product to sell to the American people. They're American manufacturers were paying more to finish their product because they couldn't get it from China anymore for the same price. So, of course, that there's a dip in our manufacturing as we fight this war with China, but I anticipate that to be a blip rather than a continuation or a trend. Okay, Tim is here, and we'll see if Tim agrees with my comments on that. But being the fact that he's actually an economist by trade, where I'm more or less an amateur one, we take his word on it. But I actually think that all other trends are working in the right way. And if we look at our overall automotive industry, we went through that tough UAW strike where things kind of trended off, and now they're getting back to work. But as far as automobile purchases, new automobile purchases, leases, and everything like that, we are at a 17, 18-year high again. And so, people are putting their money to work. And, people like my parents who are retired, their portfolios are growing because of what the markets are doing. So even those that are out of the workforce are making more money. Tim is saying the nationalism ISM report Friday was an aberration, not consistent at all with the Chicago PMI or construction spanning. Yeah, so that's I don't even know what you want to call it. That's economist speak for there are separate sectors, and if you take everything in aggregate reporting, it's just kind of like I said, like a dip that'll come back because it's only one sector and it's impacted by certain things. And if we get into a China phase 2 deal, one of the first things it's going to address this type of the manufacturing front, which is big for us in Pennsylvania, big for us in Ohio, it's big for us in Wisconsin, it's big for us in Michigan. And that is what Trump is going to focus on. I mean, laser focus, electoral college politics, people. So stop getting worried about the national polls telling you what this and this and this is, because it's taking a large number of voters from California and New York and Illinois and Jersey and Maryland. And you got to deal with the fact that we don't give a shit about them. I'm sorry. I know probably should, but we don't. Not this year, not in an election year. You will suffer, and that's fine. You're not getting your SALT tax issue resolved, unless we really want to cut a deal of great importance, which right now Pelosi doesn't deserve any deals. So if you're getting punished and you're a Republican, have some faith. If you live in New York and you live in Jersey and you live in Maryland, I mean, cast your vote for Donald Trump. It really doesn't matter if you do or you don't. We're going to lose that state no matter what. But if you don't get out and vote, you're going to kill our down ballot chances, and you're going to hurt our chance to take back the House. And that's where we need people in New York and California specifically. We need you guys, like in your district, Obi, in Lisa's district. And out there in California, we're talking about Jen and Brian's district. We're talking about Colleen's area. We're talking about places where you can still get that seat back, even with the ballot harvesting bullshit. So it doesn't just end with Trump. We want to give Trump a real chance to have a majority in each chamber without the albatross of Paul Ryan.
Oh, every time I think about that guy, it gives me a headache.
Yeah, I think if you lift up the mask, it's it's the Koch brothers or Nancy Pelosi on any given day. Certainly not a positive thing for the Republicans. And we are trending so far away, and I love to see it, Obi. We're trending so far away from the shit that got us in trouble, from the Club for Growth shit that got us in trouble for 15 years. And, it led to George Bush getting elected in 2000 and couldn't get him reelected in 2004. So we had to go with the social wedge issues like gay marriage and that kind of thing. And then you get to 2008, we got blown out of the water by it because guess what? All that shit hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because all those guys, the Koch brothers, everybody who was investing in all these big associations, Republican associations, they were making money. They were making money hand over fist off these securitized mortgages and all these bad loans that were going on, and everything that happened with Lehman and Bear and AGI, all this shit. That's not going to happen again. Freddie and Fannie and all that other shit. It was basically unregulated. That's what they did. I mean, Bush just unregulated everything without a care in the fucking world. And that led to the fallout that we saw in 2008. We're not going to ever have a bubble like that again anytime soon. Certainly not under Trump. Spending is up. Taxes are down, but the revenues going into the Treasury are not. So the problem is, are we on a trend that's going to be problematic 10 years from now, 12 years, 14, depending who the president is? Yep, we are. I mean, we're spending too much, man. And eventually your debt ratio will start to hamper everything across the board. But right now, going into an election year is not the time to start talking to the American people about entitlement cuts.
Nope.
All right, we don't do that. We don't want to talk to anybody.
We don't want to hear what Rand Paul has to say about.
No, we don't want to hear Rand Paul. You know what? For this election, we should tape his mouth shut and throw him in a closet. Because I'll tell you, I don't need any of that Club for Growth bullshit. I don't need any of that libertarian bullshit. I don't need any of that and the Fed bullshit, because this is about growth. And like anything else, you got to spend money to make money. It's no different in the world of government. If you don't spend that money, you got to spend it to make it. And the Democrats force us because they have the House. Now go back to our silver-haired friend, Mel Bitchell. Remember what he says?
Do we have to?
It's a good thing that we lost the House, OB. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. No.
Yeah, Trump wanted to lose the House.
You're such a moron, Mitchell. It's a bad thing because we have to agree on every spending authorization bill. They get everything they want. In order to get what we want, there's nothing cut. So the bills are higher. So we're driving up the debt. Okay, that's just what's happening. I mean, and the whole argument that Bush was saying the debt was too high under Clinton, and then we had Obama coming in saying that the debt and the deficit were immoral, and then he drove it up even higher, and then Trump comes in and he fucking blown it all out of the water altogether. I mean, we're cutting deals left and right, but it's like I said, if you're not willing to spend the money, you're not going to make any money. And that reminds me of one thing I wanted to announce tonight. If anybody wants to help me, support me, Jen, you've been great. You put my PayPal link up. I appreciate that. Any money you send me on my PayPal, which is paypal.me/Adam Gingrich, all one word. Any money you send me tonight or into tomorrow before 4:00, I'm going to double, because I have learned that this state of Pennsylvania now allows legal sports gambling. And Glenn reminded me of this because he was going to Vegas. And I'm going to bet against the Eagles, because the Eagles will lose, Obi, to the Seattle Seahawks. And that is incredible that it's like almost like an even split right now. I'm going to take every dollar you give me. It's like you know how politicians say it's a matching night? Oh, send in your money, I'm going to match it. Well, they never do, by the way. That's all bullshit, by the way. So nobody ever understands where the matches are coming from. They're never reported. I don't know what the hell, anyway, bad secret. I shouldn't let it out. But no, I will match it. Everything that I get from PayPal between tonight and tomorrow at kickoff, I'm going to bet I'm going to double my money. I'm going to double my money because the Eagles are going to lose to the Seahawks. That's going to happen. So if you donate to me, you're donating double. It's a match. and that'll send my kids to their private school for another year. So that's it. That's the fundraising push for the evening.
I like it.
Glenn is in Vegas, but I will make my first bet in Pennsylvania. How about that? I mean, there's the irony. Glenn flies all the way to Vegas. I'm going to make a sports bet tomorrow in the state of Pennsylvania, and he won't bet at all in Vegas.
Did it just become legal this year now?
Mm-hmm. You can do it. We can do it. So every $5 you send my way is going to go make sure that Eagles fans are miserable, and I make money off of it. So anyway, I appreciate the shout outs in the chat. Let's see what's lots of unhappy voters coming in to re-register Republican due to DMV dropping their status, but that's California. Wow.
Okay, I have a quick announcement to make.
Oh boy.
Steve Lookner is on.
Oh shit. Should we should just all bolt over Steve Lookner. Love that guy. I gotta find a pair of glasses or something. Give me a minute, Obi. I want to see if I can find a pair of glasses here. All right, I'll be right back.
Okay. Oh, that's funny. That's about as predictable as you can get, right? My goodness. How many people does he have? 2,000 people watching on YouTube and another 500 on Periscope. That's pretty good for him. He's usually right around 1,000. I guess it's a late Saturday night, so people are home. Oh, there you go.
There we go. There we go.
Sweet.
There we go. I just have to look down at the stare at it. What's going on? I'm seeing there's a tornado in Kansas. No, wait a minute. That's a Al Shabaab attack in Kenya. Wait a minute. One of the window cleaners fell off the 6th story in New York. Let's switch over to that one for a minute.
No one in this chat room is believing it.
Is believing what?
That it's a big deal at all. They're saying it's the same kind of reaction you had, that it's BS.
Oh, it's not. It's not probably gonna. Oh my god. These are my wife's bifocals. Hey, we got our first PayPal from Papa. Thank you, Papa. That will go directly into doubling your donation.
All right.
Thanks to the inauspicious efforts of the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, Nick Foles plays for another team now, so that means you're going to lose.
So really, once the Seahawks win, it'll be like 3 times. 3 times matching or 4 times matching, right?
Why? What am I, parlaying this damn thing?
No. If someone donates you $5,
yeah,
you're putting in $5, so you start out with $5.
Obi, you are.
So it's 10 and then doubles to 20. So you started with 5 and you get 20.
Wow, Obi, look at the brain on Obi. Someone draft him to the Space Force.
There we go. I think I'm a little too old to join up.
HIPAA, I do have one for you on that, and I guarantee it. You don't have to do a money line on that because I think you'll lose your money. I think that the Saints are going to rip open and pretty much do a forensic autopsy on the Vikings. So go ahead and lay the points and take the Saints at home. They will cover probably by 10 to 13. So there you go. Nick Foles sucks. River, come on. I mean, he took them, into the playoff, the Super Bowl, and then took them into the playoffs to the the NFC Championship game or something. What did he do the next year? I forget. I hate the Eagles. Oh, Big Ralph. He's always on me about the Dallas coach. I don't know. I don't want Urban Meyer. I swear to God, if it's Urban Meyer, I'll quit. I'll quit the damn Cowboys. And I've been a Cowboys fan since I was 5 years old, to be honest with you. I will quit the Cowboys if it's Urban Meyer. So please don't be. I would like Mike Zimmer to come back. I know I just trashed the Minnesota Vikings chances tomorrow, but that's because the Saints are a hell of a team at home, and I really don't think Kirk Cousins is a big game quarterback. And if you look at him and his playoff record and big game record, it's not good. So, but I would like Mike Zimmer. He's a good defensive coach, and he gets along pretty well with Jerry. He actually came up through the Cowboys system, Obi. I bet you didn't know that.
Nope. I do
Yeah,
not care much about football.
Because you don't give a shit. I knew it. That was going to be my next one.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly a possibility that the Saints win it all, but I don't know where the Super Bowl is this year. Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know. I do know that the President Trump was rooting for the Patriots tonight, so that was a tough loss for the president as well as some fans that actually care, unlike Obi. But you are kind of a Patriots fan, so you've always been, or
yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts, so
yeah, okay,
kind of had to be.
I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and I grew up a Cowboys fan, so there's no mandate. Okay, this isn't Iran. Okay, you can't tell me who I have to root for.
Although I used to like the Eagles when like Cunningham was their quarterback.
Mm-hmm. You're dating yourself, brother.
Mm-hmm.
You are dating yourself.
That was a while ago.
Mm-hmm. We've thrown them all off now. They're all talking football. My God, football talk. We never talk football with Glenn. You know why?
Because he cares about it less than I do.
Which is hard to do, apparently. But yes, he absolutely abhors sports in general. He's kind of a ghost. It's in Miami. That's outdoors. So, Breeze likes to be inside with a turf. So I don't know how that's going to go. But certainly we're going to see if Kansas City can kind of claw their way through the rest of the AFC. But I told my friend earlier today, Obi, I really did that. And he's a sports gaming guy. And I told him, I think Derrick Henry was going to have like a Walter Payton game tonight, and that they would at least cover against New England. And Derrick Henry really lit them up. I mean, he had a hell of a game. I think the shitty quarterback, whatever the hell his name is, he only had like 100 yards passing the whole time. So that was a Derrick Henry game. So, yeah, he is a load, big fish. I mean, that screen pass, I saw him run at the end where he almost scored, and then they scored in the next play. He's a load. He's a big guy. So there'll be a tough matchup for anybody that they play. So, yeah, Glenn reminds me of a soccer type guy. No. I've yet to find any athletic competition that doesn't involve firearms that interests Glenn Herman. I'm glad I said that, because that is going to bring up a point that's driving me crazy on the gaslighting subject. So I'm going full Steve Lookner here.
What are you going to go? Virginia?
Yes. This shit is pissing me off. I mean, at first I laughed it off. And then they got this stuff on your guys' Alex Jones website. This the UN, the UN is hiring disarmament and all this other fucking.
Yeah.
First of all, it's the UN, and they hire in two offices. One is in New York, and the other is somewhere in fucking Europe, wherever.
Mhm.
And they're not. You really think that's what they're talking about? I mean, it's just so ridiculous that they're hiring through the UN, okay, to go throughout the world, to go to like freaking Liberia or Kenya, to go to Camp Shubalabi to get shalabalabs out. Okay, this is what it's really about. And people are trying to say that they're going to come down to Virginia and systematically take orders. World orders will be will be given out by Blackface Northam. That's the way that's the way the world's moving now. Blackface is going to give out orders to the UN, and they're going to come and take away your firearms. I mean, what the hell is going on?
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Is there anybody that legitimately believes this shit? Raise your hand on either side. Is there anybody is there anybody?
And not in this audience, I don't think.
No. Yep. Nope.
Yeah, that's more of a Q type person.
God, these comments are actually easier to read with my Bob glasses on.
No, Bob's glasses were they were too big for him, weren't they? I think that was the joke.
I'm going to start doing my Bubbles voice now because I'm so locked into Trailer Park Boys.
I wasn't sure if you were serious about that. You really like?
Are you an aficionado?
I've seen them all. Yeah.
Okay, I'm really starting to slow down because I'm into season 10 and I've only got a couple left, and I start to get that anxiety. Like, oh, I mowed down through the first, 6 seasons, and like because they're 20-minute episodes, maybe 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just fly by. And
but I did the same thing. I binge watched them in like a month and watched them all.
It's insanely. I guess the closest I could probably. I've told some people that that it was maybe like an American Seinfeld or a Canadian Seinfeld. That was wrong altogether. It was not. It's more like a Canadian Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I mean, that's a close, but even better. I mean, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the first 5 seasons, good. The last, whatever, is just, shit. But I will say that the writing's pretty simplistic, but the mischaracterization, the misarticulation from Ricky, the writing of that stuff, the Bubbles character, I mean, from that,
Julian always has the glass of rum in his hand.
I don't dress up for Halloween as a rule anymore, Obi, and I haven't for a lot of years. But now I'm going to seek out a holiday Halloween party later this year, and I'm going to dress as Julian, and I will just have a black V-neck shirt on and a pair of jeans and a rum and Coke. So,
Mr. Leahy's pretty good too.
Mr. Leahy, Randy. I mean, honest to God, Randy taking his pants off for every fight is quite phenomenal. I mean, it never gets old to me. 10 seasons in, and Randy has never disappointed me. But I mean, I really, honestly, check it out. I mean, obviously, it was a dubious thing for me. I was like, what? I don't like Canadian humor. What the hell? I haven't seen anything good since like SCTV or whatever. This shit out of this world. Watch it. Schitt's Creek, I'm going to try to get, I'll binge watch that some other time. Eugene Levy or whatever, he's a Canadian guy. I think he's in that. He's funny. But anyway, the LSU over Clemson, obviously, I don't know what the spread on that game is, but how do you bet against LSU at this point? Joe Burrows as a quarterback throwing the ball as well as I've seen. I don't know. I wanted to tell you the last time I saw a quarterback throwing a deep ball like that. I mean, he's completing passes to 40 yards or more at like 60-some%, which is what guys do from 8 to 9 yards. It's insane. It's a sad thing. He's going to end up in Cincinnati because he's too good. They're going to have to pick him, and they have no quarterback left with Dalton leaving. But I don't know what the spread is. You'd have to let me know what that is. But I certainly think if it's not more than 6.5, I think you take LSU to cover. If it's closer than that, I'd just take the money line and parlay that thing with something else. Yeah, Oklahoma really rolled over now, and that was really disgusting to see that type of effort where you're giving up 70 plus points. But let me say, the passing coordinator of LSU was informed that his daughter-in-law was killed in that plane crash prior to that game, and he coached that game.
Mm.
And this was his son's wife. They were only married a year. She was a sportscaster in the area. She covered, I believe, the New Orleans Pelicans, and she was flying down there. And the only reason she was flying on that plane that crashed on the way to that game was because her husband had to work, and he couldn't go, and they were going to drive. And so now he has to live with that for the rest of his life. And he missed the phone call and the text that she sent prior to crashing in the plane. I mean, there are some things that are just really hard to wrap your mind around. But the fact that his son went through that, he learned of it before the game and agreed to coach and came out and called what is considered to be one of the finest passing game calling plans in the history of college football playoffs. So, nothing helps when you learn of something like that. But what an amazing man to go and I don't know if granted, who knows what it takes to do that, but he did it. And the shame of it is a beautiful, talented young reporter, and I believe a 15-year-old, unfortunately, was on that plane as well, and they died going to a football game. So you never freaking know. You never know. It was sad. It was very sad.
It's true. Life is short and fleeting, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
What is that phrase? The future is uncertain, and the end is always near.
Was it Jim Morrison or something?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. LSU 5.5. I would definitely lay the point. You don't want to give up that money. You're probably giving up $200 against the line. So I think that LSU is a good cover against Clemson. Clemson's a good team, but let's face it, if they didn't get lucky, they wouldn't have beaten that Ohio State team. So LSU is your pick. Any other good, because I'm telling you, this is the most frustrating thing for me, Obi, is any other good Netflix or Amazon series that some of our folks might not know?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I just watched. Do you stream Amazon Prime as well?
I have it, but I haven't, in the last couple of years, I haven't really been watching much TV and stuff.
Yeah, I don't watch much. I actually just stream it through the iPad when I have something I can, keep my eye on one thing. Keep the news on, the market on. If I'm streaming something, I can stream it on my iPad and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon's worth it's not that expensive. My wife has Prime, so I get to watch.
Yeah, I have Prime, so I get it too.
Yeah, you should do that and check out. A lot of people laugh, but I think it's pretty good. There's 2 seasons of the Jack Ryan. I think it's what is it? That Clancy.
Yeah, I've
series.
been wanting to check that out actually.
That's worth it. And then there's it's kind of a weird series called The Boys, and it's about malevolent superheroes that the good guys are trying to stop bad superheroes. It's actually worth a watch.
I remember reading a review about that, and it's not like your average just woke thing, right? It's like anti-woke.
Oh, it's like I hate Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate any. I don't go to movies anyway, so I won't give them my money because I hate. If you hate my president, I hate you, or you hate me and my president. I'm not going to go to the movie theater and give you money.
Mm-hmm.
So I really particularly don't understand people who like whatever they are, those Marvel movies, what do they call them? The Avengers or something like that. I don't understand anything like that. This is the antithesis of it, the exact opposite of it. And I think what they're doing is they're making fun of it a little bit. So that it's kind of like a sub pop culture type of hit on them. So these are going to hurt my eyes, so I'm going to take these off. Wow. I don't know how Steve Lookner does it, man. Woo!
Well, he probably has the right prescription.
Yeah,
That would help, right?
maybe. Woo! Wow. Whoa. I tried to watch Man in the High Castle. I got disinterested maybe halfway through. Interesting precept. I know the original novel, uh, but I didn't really get into it. So cut your enjoyment of movies to own the libs. Come on. Well, I don't.
Yeah,
This is
but what if they're not enjoyable?
Yeah, I don't. It's not like I was like I'm gonna cut out. I'm gonna cut out these movies I would never go to. I've never seen any of them. I don't know anything about them. So maybe they are great movies. Obi, I could give a shit.
If you like that kind of genre and special effects and things blowing up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not really into that. It doesn't really do anything for me. Any of them, I just don't do it.
No.
Disappointingly, have not gotten to see Richard Jewell yet. I would like to do it, but when you have two small kids and a wife who says, "What the hell do you mean you're going to the movies?" So it doesn't happen that often that I get to the movies. So I do want to try to get to see Richard Jewell. I'll probably have to go like a matinee or something before the kids get out of school if I can ever pick a day to do that. So I think everybody here has watched Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
If you haven't, what's wrong with you? And certainly, I believe that's on either Netflix or Amazon, where you can just stream
that's
that.
a must see, obviously.
Amazon also has, in case you don't have HBO Go, you can watch Sopranos from top to bottom on Amazon Stream. So if you have not seen Sopranos and Breaking Bad, then I really don't. I think you have to turn in your American citizenship or something. I don't know. Something bad will happen. Prediction for Billions. Oh man, that's a great question. What I think is the greatest show on television, which is Billions, and that is on Showtime. That's a great question. I think this is going to be the last season, from what I'm told. It's going to be a wild one, but it never will it be as good as it was when you saw that initial adversarial relationship between the U.S. Attorney's Office and the New York Southern District and a rich guy, because that's exactly what's going on between Donald Trump and a lot of the U.S. attorneys in New York.
You've told me you've mentioned that show a bunch of times. I still haven't watched it yet.
That is, if you haven't watched that, that is the binge of all binges right there.
I'm gonna go and download them tonight when we end the show.
Oh, it's just you'll be up all night.
Great.
Up all night. So yeah, Breaking Bad, obviously that's an easy one. I think Breaking Bad and what's the other one on AMC? Mad Men are two that you're better off never watching until you watch it all at once.
Yeah. I remember I got the flu one year, and for about a week straight, I just watched Breaking Bad in bed, I binge watched all of it in one sitting, basically.
Somebody's asking about El Camino. I actually thought it was better than what people told me it was going to be. And I think it was part nostalgic on my behalf. I think I was so nostalgic for all things Breaking Bad that I liked it better than maybe some people would. Certainly, if you never saw Breaking Bad, you try to watch El Camino, you're going to be like, what the hell just happened? What is this? It's certainly not something you're going to like. And this gives me a chance to talk about this. I took off, I think, a month where I decided to stiff arm this Irishman film simply because my disgust level for Robert De Niro is off the charts. And I didn't think I could.
It's a long 3 hours of listening.
Yeah, but I love Scorsese. Okay, I love Scorsese.
Yeah, I saw it.
I think Pesci's great. I love Harvey Keitel. Right. So I was just waiting until the right time, and then finally, the other night, I watched it, and it's awful.
It was pretty slow and bad.
It was awful, and to say that was Scorsese's finest film, That is a terrible thing to say.
Mhm.
And I think that this de-aging technology that they had, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but did De Niro not look like Robin Williams at times? I mean, it was weird. It was just like they tried to smooth out his
Yeah,
face,
something seemed
eyes,
just when it's not perfect, then your brain picks it up and it makes it seem like creepy almost.
and it was deliberately 3 hours. I mean, Goodfellas almost 3 hours, different type of movie. Casino 3 hours, different type. Excellent movies.
Hmm.
Excellent movies, despite the fact that we all hate Robert De Niro and he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
But
there wasn't like one joke in the whole movie. Not that it's supposed to be like a funny movie, but you'd figure there'd be some like
no
funny
levity,
banter going on or
no
something.
levity, no levity. And frankly, I think it was a push by Scorsese's whatever he's got out there in Hollywood to talk that movie up. And I haven't seen the Tarantino movie because I'm so pissed off at him
Hmm.
about the politics stuff. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Right.
haven't seen
I
that
haven't
yet.
seen it yet either.
Supposedly that's like one of his finest films. But I think to the person that was making fun of me for not watching movies for political purposes, uh, I have to give it a little bit of space because if you get in my face and tell me you don't like me or you don't like my president, in most cases, like Ron Howard, combine the two of us and just throw us away.
Hmm.
It's really hard for me to objectively watch your shit.
Right.
Uh, so I'm gonna wait a little bit, and I'll eventually, when it's free, probably watch Once Upon a Time
Hmm.
in Hollywood. But it's so frustrating because there are actors that just want to act and they just want their film to do well and they want to be proud of their product. And then there's other actors like Matt Damon and the Affleck brothers and others that
Hmm.
just ruin it.
Hmm.
They just preemptively ruin the experience. Why can't you be like Matthew McConaughey and just not do that? I mean, Matthew McConaughey has said some fairly Texas-oriented libertarian stuff over the years, and the libs have never turned on him because he gets high and naked and plays the bongos. So, Obi, can you see gift challenge?
I think I know what he's talking about. I think he said anyone that donates to your PayPal tonight,
Yes.
he'll match it up to $500.
Whoa.
Price six.
Bryce doesn't mess around, by the way.
Okay. Bryce
But
doesn't mess around.
no, Bryce does not mess around.
So that means it's like giving 6 times.
Now we're up to 6 times. Now this is like a real match, not like the fake matching that you get from politicians.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so far, Bryce, you're off the hook for the most part. There's only been one $50. But there might be more. But Obi does not have my PayPal up there, so nobody knows what the hell it is. So
I know Glenn didn't send me the new
of course you didn't.
the new graphic. At least I didn't see it in the Dropbox, so I can put
Well,
I can put a little
don't worry about it. I wanted to use that as a segue to people have usually have gone to my website. Yeah, I do have some gray hair going on there. Thank you. My website is mothballed because I'm being sued.
right. The copyright lawyers.
Yeah, I haven't really discussed this too much, but the latest is that I've received my third email informing me that that I'm running out of chances to pay up, and they want I don't know $2,800 for the
Those
use
guys
of a
are
photo.
such scum, man.
I know, it's just like it wasn't even
It's
their photo. It's like their photo and two other photos that was taken from bluntforce.com or
mhm,
blunt truth or whatever. And and their reviews, they say it doesn't matter. And so I had to take the website offline.
mhm.
And now whether they sue me or not, I'm still waiting on that. We'll have to see how that goes. But um, I said I'm not a corporate entity because you have under the law. They're saying that because my PayPal link was on there on somewhere on the website that I am a monetized corporate website. So they're suing me as a corporate entity, which of course I'm not an LLC on Wikimedia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's me they're suing as, or in other words, they're suing my wife if it comes down to that.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to appreciate the fact that this is how bad it is. I mean, you just can't do anything.
Oh, they've been doing this for years and years.
Yeah, and go show California law firm,
Mm-hmm.
with connections to some people I might have given a little hell to over the last few months, and they're trying to shut you down. And I'm not one to belabor this shit and get on it too much, but it's very frustrating because now, where do you go from here? Where do you go? I mean, Glenn and I have been having some conversation. We've got to shore up what we're doing, but we got to shore up this whole media connection to the people side too. I've got to be able to write articles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I don't need to worry about the picture so much, but I've got to get a way to get my stuff to people. And I see what Wayne's doing, and Wayne's doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to talk to him about his connection to LifeZ or whatever that is, or if Laura Ingram's still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways to do it. But I guess I'll have to look into that because getting sued for photo copyright for public domain. No
It's a cottage industry of these law firms. That
yeah,
do
it
this.
is. It is, and they're serious though.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just wanted to find out that this is one of these pennies on the dollar scams.
Mm-hmm.
And no, this is literally a law firm that specializes in this, and they just run this major algorithm through,
Mm-hmm.
and they have 50,000 photographers that just
They sign up for
$100.
they sign up for their service, and
Yep.
then they go out and try to squeeze people.
I don't know what that means. Obi could be a character straight out of Breed. That was a Periscope comment. Don't know what that means.
I don't know. I don't have Periscope open right now.
Bryce, you are under no pressure to do that. You have done more than enough on that. Breaking Bad, that mustache.
Mm.
Which character is that? Preet? I don't remember that one. So what's a concise argument to justify U.S. military presence abroad to tell all Tucker Tulsi peaceniks? Okay, we got a question there. From SB's Sis the Truth. A concise, basic argument to justify U.S. military presence abroad. That's wow. That's a pretty broad question, though. I mean, we're not talking about the Iraqi 5,000, 6,000 troop contingent at the base there. We're talking about military presence abroad. So we've got,
What do we need? Like an elevator speech, kind of a
well,
2-minute answer question.
You got 54,000 troops in Europe. You've got, I believe, about 30,000 troops in South Korea.
Think so.
We've got a couple thousand troops spread out through the African continent. As we know now, we learned tonight that some of them are at Camp
Mabubu,
Wamba in Lumbee County or whatever the fuck it is. Kenya.
Al Shabaab Bob, let us know.
Yeah, Al Shabaab Bob is all over that. Took over part of it. Just took over one charcoal grill that was outside. So it's not real hard to justify what we have. We have about a couple hundred people guarding some oil fields and other strategic prison holdings of ISIS prisoners in Syria. I think if you're coming into the game, SB, late, I think the one concession I made on the academic front, and Obi has not disagreed with me, is that we need to look at what an Afghanistan withdrawal would look like, and how would that impact the region, and would it undermine the blood and treasure that we invested there in the name of 9/11, and what would the worst possible scenarios be? Are we flying Hueys off of Saigon, the embassy, and leaving them all there to get killed by the opposition, where the Taliban come in and destroy the government, that type of deal. But I think that's the one thing I do concede to the Tulsi Tucker crowd, is that we need to look now at Afghanistan more than ever because we do have needs. We do have needs, and most of those needs are in the Middle East on the ground,
Mhm.
and then our naval stuff not only in the Middle East but certainly in the Southeast Asian theater. I mean, we've got to be right there
Yeah,
with
I
all
mean,
Chinese
the,
interests.
to me, it comes down to is we are the superpower in the world, and if you want to be a superpower, and if you, that's maybe a different question. Should we not be a superpower? I believe we have to be, because if not us, then someone else. Are we gonna let China take over?
Yeah, thanks.
Uh, the answer is no. We're not gonna let China take over.
They will, but only after we're out of it. They're not going
Hmm.
to challenge anything, right? I mean, that's the important part about what Russia is doing. I mean, getting into Syria was like kind of a big deal. It's like getting in bed with the enemy right there. It's as close as we've slept with the enemy in a long, long, probably since 1945. If you think about it,
Hmm.
having Russia and American forces communicating with each other in Syria about no flight zones or anything like that. That was even though we killed about I don't know how many guys from Russia, 200 or whatever. It's probably an advancement, but it's certainly not. It's something that they're willing. They would lose 1,000 troops and gladly stay in Syria if we let them. The fact that Assad is still running the country and there are still Russian units patrolling in Syria, that is something that never would have happened under George Bush. Never. Well, Bryce, I'll tell you that Kathy gave $20, so it's gone up. Holy shit! Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna send that one, Bryce. You can talk to Bill Moran. Click him and message him or something like that. Follow him or something because that's not something we want to. If you ever wanted to give but haven't at least now, I'm not betting this shit now. I mean now I can't because I can't lose the money that people are investing in me. So what I'll do, Obi,
Okay.
is I'm gonna take the $150 that I have left in my PayPal account
Hmm.
before this broadcast started, and I'm gonna bet it on the Seattle Seahawks. And if the goddamn Eagles win, all this gratuity right here will still be there so that I can send it to my wife and not get killed.
Mm,
That sound like a good plan?
yeah. Do you know by chance if you can bet from in New York too?
I don't know about New York. I know you can in Delaware, but I think you can in New York. I don't
I
know.
think so.
I don't know. Oh, SB was from from very liberal New Zealand. Uh, yeah, and frankly, holy shit, there's a lot of news coming out of Australia, and I know it's going to be linked back to climate change and all that stuff. But listen, that's our winter here is their summer, and every now and then things get in that perfect condition where I heard the temperatures there were crazy high and dry anyway. But certainly, that's about as destructive of forest fire I've ever seen.
Hmm.
The photos of what's going on in Australia, it makes the stuff that happens in California look like a campfire. So
I heard
we
some of that was arson.
could. But, well, in that case, does it really matter? I mean, not talking to Greta Thunberg here. I mean, really, does it have to be a lightning strike and then what are you going to call it? Thank you, Terry. Terry's in for $10. Um, it's not a climate change argument. It's what I don't know down there, but we do know in California, and we have a lot of friends out here in California. What they do out there, and you've been out there, but you've seen it.
Hmm.
They just leave that underbrush that lying under the electric wires, laying out
Mm-hmm.
there. It's like a damn desert out there in
Mm-hmm.
parts of in California, and there's just so much stuff to burn. And it's because they don't allow anybody to clean out the underbrush, and they're worried about mudslides. Well, take your pick. All right, it's gonna rain. It's gonna mudslide if you clean out all the loose limbs and branches and stuff on the ground and the bushes that
Mm-hmm.
burn. But they also keep the soil,
Mm-hmm.
intact. Take your poison. Pick your poison. You get 85% of the year. It's 78 degrees and sunny.
If not more.
Yeah, I mean it's a hell of a thing.
It's like well over 300 days a year anyway.
I gotta get like Bill and Bryce together because they need to decide stuff.
Maddie says 12 million acres burned. Over 12 million. That's a lot.
That's crazy. She's talking about Australia
I
or
think so,
California?
yeah. It's got to be Australia.
Okay, well, she's not in California, I don't think, but I think she's close. I think she's out, and I don't want to call her
She's
out.
near,
Arizona, right?
yeah, near Phoenix, I think.
Yep. Okay. Oh, look at this. It's flooding in now. Big Fish is in.
All right.
Elizabeth is in. People are all in. They must be. Hey, I'm getting a lot of messages saying, share some with Obi. He's a hell of a producer.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
tonight I did a real great bang up job.
Well, yeah, only took you one.
Yeah, only one buffering time. That's it. Not going for that record.
Like, oh, yeah. Oh, look at this. It's all coming in now. Kellyanne's coming in with $10. I mean, people are awesome. It's like I've never asked for money. It's weird to ask for money like this, but
It is weird. I always feel weird
the
about it.
$25 for Rita. And I got to say, it's gratuity time here. I'm kicking over to Obi for a new Space Force hat because that one looks like it's been through the fucking ringer. Would you stop wearing it to work?
That's probably why it's dirty. What are you gonna do?
Oh, here's I got to show Obi this. So anyway, here's Obi's shirt that I've had for months.
Oh, how about that?
And I keep giving my wife the address, and I never give her anything to mail it with. And she's like, "Well, if you give me an envelope, I'll mail it." But I've yet to do that. So this is the large man. So I hope this will fit.
It'll
I
fit.
couldn't fit into it, but you requested blue, if I'm not mistaken. So
Blue was
I bought that for you quite literally 7 months ago.
yeah, that sounds
So,
about right.
yeah, so it was
What was
either
it? Probably
catching up
August or something.
yeah, it was July, so maybe even
Oh,
longer.
July.
So you got that coming your way, brother. And also, you're going to get a new Space Force hat, courtesy of the friends that are donating tonight.
Okay.
To me. So now that I have your address, I can just ship that directly to you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wear it to work, though.
Okay.
That's your work Space Force hat. Then you'll have one for your shows.
Well, this is my hat I can wear. Support Trump, but not be out and out wearing like a MAGA hat, you know? Where I definitely get compliments on it from some people who know what it is, but no one ever comes up and starts like a negative conversation about it.
It's hard to because people have asked me about it over the holidays and said, what's this really about? I said, well, it's called a Space Force. It's $200 million or $40 billion and 200 employees. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So $20 from, I believe it was Martha. I missed the name. Damn it. I hate when I miss that. There's George. George Erickson is a good friend of mine. George, I want to tell you something. Nobody else is going to understand what we're talking about here, but George is another one of our hardcore California fighters. Um, yes, I still am, George. I still am. I think by the end of the week, she will put those through. So George, as a gift to my kids for Christmas, sent this. I never heard of it before, but it's kind of funny and ironic. In case he doesn't believe me, but I'm using it to hold up my iPad right now. But if you have kids, it's awesome. It's a dominoes game.
Mm.
It's half Mexican train, chicken foot, and a couple other games. You can play regular dominoes with it too. But when you have a 5 and a 7-year-old like me, you don't want to start out with regular increments of 5 type of scoring things. So he sends me this, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. Chicken foot, whatever. They get addicted to this, and now I have to play chicken foot every night before dinner and before they go to bed. And they beat me routinely. So thank you, George. It was an incredible gift. And this, by the way, I didn't mean to do this tonight, but they're both sitting here. This was a gift. I have 2 of them. There's another one around here from Jen and Brian. It's you see that? It says California Love. It's from their Billabong shop out there. My daughter wears this. My 7-year-old wears this every day since Christmas.
Wow.
It came the day after Christmas, and she wears it every day. So now what I get from them when they come out of school, take them home, they say they want to go to California.
Oh boy.
Yep. Because I said, tell me again who sent these, chicken foot. That's George from California. And then they know Jen and Brian from California. So they're like, oh, we want to go to California. I was like, oh, that's nothing. That's cheap. We'll just do that anytime you want.
Yeah. Piece of cake. It's right around the corner.
Yeah. Check it out. If I'm serious, chicken foot, if you have kids that are really young and you don't want to get into the full dominoes where you're like doing scoring by 5s and 10s and all that other crap. If you got a 5-year-old, wants to be involved, it's funny. It's great. Mexican train's a little bit different than chicken foot, but it's a hell of a thing. These are people, for the most part, that have been with me, Obi, since the beginning. So they're the ones that were there for the original eggnog. The original eggnog scope, which we have done 3 of now, if you can believe it.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when I started watching your scopes, but it was pretty early. It must somehow it was through that silver hair guy. I watched him and then started following you on Twitter.
Hey, listen, speaking of which, so I'm told you called into Agent Poso's scope the other night. I was not available. Is it in fact true that he called you a legend?
He did.
Are you kidding me?
He doesn't even know who I am. He knows my avatar. I've met him twice.
No, he does. Yeah, you've met him at least twice.
Yeah.
At least twice. No, you met him 3 times.
3 times?
You met him the first time down in Atlanta.
Correct.
Second time you met him was at no, maybe that was the DC event.
The DC event was the second time.
Second time, and that was, I guess
that was it.
That was it. Well, 2 Posos is enough to make you a legend.
I've had quite enough, thanks.
Sylvia's in $25. Thank you, Sylvia.
But I gotta say, he has taken a pretty measured, responsible take on everything the past week, I would say, too, with the Suleiman thing.
Well, listen, when Trump tweets or retweets what you say in that regard, I think Trump is like being strategic. We're like, let me cut off let me cut off one of these RT wings that I can't control all the time. So I think it was really cool because I've been counseling Jack forever to just stay away from that stupid bullshit. Because you're American, One American News is a big thing now for Trump, at least. Anyway, it's not growing as fast as everybody wants. No.
I watch it every once in a while because I do have Cloud TV, So
Mhm.
sometimes I'll watch it and I don't know what it is. Something about their lighting or just something about it. It doesn't quite have that professional feel to it yet. I mean,
Well,
it
it
is, but
it kind of looks like um, Kazakhstan state TV. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's kind of got that lighting, but I think they got a couple kick-ass reporters. I'm too, and people are going to say, yeah, you like them because they're beautiful, whatever. But I like that Chanel
mm-hmm.
Rion, and I really like for a while Emerald what, Robinson, I think her name is.
Robinson, yeah.
Yeah. So they're the ones that I watch for, not necessarily Jack, but it's just Jack is an interesting guy, and I've known him, for a while now. It's just funny because you've managed to have one opinion of Jack versus I can't even bring Jack's name up around Glenn sometimes because
Mm-hmm.
it's Cheshire grin and but stuff. Um, but I've been able to disagree a lot about certain shit with Jack, but I will also do it and tell him when I disagree with him by text, and he takes it right on the chin and gives it right back to me sometimes, and that's all you can ask for with a friend. I mean, he's never burned me. All of his friends hate me. The Will Chamberlains of the world, when he was hanging out with, all these crazy Cernovich and Dr. Jane or whatever the hell her name was, they all went nuts on me and blocked me and talked shit about me. Jack has never done that.
mm-hmm.
Never done that. And so therefore I'm not ever going to do that to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of funny to hear him call you a legend because I think it all goes back to the Pastor Burns stuff. I mean, I
Could
think a
be.
lot of people associate that your couple, two times that you really interacted with Pastor Burns. One was on Periscope
And
for
it was
Jack to
a
see in
free
California.
Obi, free Obi.
Yeah, the one down in Atlanta was awesome.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that was. I let him have it again, if you remember, Pastor Burns. I let him have it in California about that. But that's because Pastor Burns, what he messed up that shit so bad. Like when he did the scope talking about the party and the.
yeah.
You know what? I don't know if anybody out there watches commercials because I really don't. I fast forward to it. There's a Liberty Mutual commercial about a young guy trying to be an actor and he flubs all the lines.
Liberty Mibberty.
Yeah, exactly. That was how bad Pastor Burns was on his come out and see us on the what did he call it? I can't even remember what the hell he called it, but he effed up everything and then managed to block Obi. Somebody blocked Obi as well.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I hold dear, man. Those are the moments in time where this whole exercise, when it's all done, as disastrous as it's been financially and to my wife's mood every now and then over the 3 years, and losing friends, obviously, because I am kind of really into the Trump world.
mm-hmm.
It's the fun moments like that. And then I just look at all the friends that I've gained over it that I never would have met otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the times that we have to take advantage of and remember. So those are some of my favorite stories. And being in California, Pastor Burns coming up, give me a big hug, and you just happen to be standing there. And boy, did I unload on him for blocking you. And he laughed his ass off, and he was apologetic as hell. I mean, he called you a legend basically on it. I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of funny that somebody that literally prays with the president, knows the president pretty well, knows Obi, and Jack, of course, has met the president, has covered the president. President retweets him, called you a legend. So I don't know what to do, man. I think you're actually closer to the president than Dilly at this point.
Probably.
Which means nothing.
Yeah.
Well, we still got 15 minutes here.
15
Got
minutes.
some personal information, opinions, thoughts you want to kick out here for everybody? Something you've been ruminating upon
You know,
politically or otherwise?
everything's just been so hectic with the impeachment the last month. That's been like totally taking all my time up politically, I would say.
What are your thoughts,
And
though? What's your gut telling you? Are you agreeing with me that Nancy's going to back down within a matter of a week, or do you think she's going to try to drag this thing out a little bit?
I think she's gonna have to give it up because the polls aren't working. I
Nope.
feel like they saw that Trump complaining that the process wasn't fair worked to help him in the polls because it
Mhm.
wasn't fair, the process in the House. So they decided, well, let's try that same thing because that seems like that's what the public wants. Seems like what's working with the public.
Mhm.
So they tried it over the Christmas break, right? They said the president doesn't want to let it or doesn't want to let us have witnesses. He's not going to run a fair thing. It's not a real trial if we don't do it our way, basically. So they tried to turn it like judo back on the president, and I just don't see it working. There isn't a single Republican that's gonna change their mind and say, "Yeah, we should really give a shit what the Democrats think." I just don't care what they think, lies come out of their mouth. I just completely disregard all of it.
You'd never come across a job site talk about this. Is generally, if you don't bring it up, no one's talking about it, right? I mean, what are you hearing
Correct.
when you go into town? You're picking up a six pack or, God forbid, something to eat. You hear anything about this? Is anybody talking about it?
Nope.
Yeah,
There
what I
was
hear
a
is if you
little.
don't bring it up, nobody talks about it. Same way in my family, actually.
Mhm.
But if you bring it up, they'll go, they'll talk about it a lot. And but even my pro-Trump, you know, my brother, kind of my sister, whatever, if you don't bring it up, they're almost exhausted by it.
Mhm.
A couple of weeks ago, like before this whole when it was on the front burner, they were
Mhm.
all yeah, everybody was talking about it and they were pissed off. But now it's like, damn, dude, I went through Christmas and that's a lot in my family. There's a lot of stuff going on, and
Mhm.
I'm telling you, man, I did not hear a lot of it at
Mhm.
all. And if I don't, then I can't imagine. And my family's huge. I just kind of and politically involved. I'm just kind of wondering how many families that aren't really entrenched in the whole process were even talking about it.
At this point, e- everyone's made up their mind, and we're sick of it. We did it
Mhm.
for 2 months as a nation collectively.
Mhm.
Didn't go anywhere. It's not, and everyone knows it's not going to go anywhere. And it just doesn't. It just seems like a giant waste of time and money.
Yeah, well, I think it also gives us a benefit of the doubt on this stuff. Jen, Big Fish, asking about New Hampshire Senate seat. It's that's like really grabbing down to the bottom of the. Wait a minute, it's 2:15. What else are we talking about down here? I knew that Corey was never going to be allowed to run for that. I didn't think that was something a distraction Trump didn't want. We have a semi-vulnerable Democrat up in that seat. I mean, that's our probably our third targeted seat as far as like their incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's of course a state that Trump concentrates on pretty heavily. So I think it's a matter of I can't tell you who's going to win until I know exactly who's going to be the Republican candidate, and then I can't tell you who's going to win until I tell you who's the Democrat running against Trump. Right? That's going to make a big deal, and depending on who it is, if it's Elizabeth Warren and she comes to the rescue of Sheehan or whatever the hell her name is, it's going to be a harder sell.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, if it's a Joe Biden or something or worse, I think that we have another shot to pick up a seat. But I think our number one shot is Alabama. Our number two shot is definitely Michigan at this point. And I would maybe put New Hampshire in at number three.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right to me.
Yeah, if you get Sununu Jr. back in, leaving the governor and going in there, I mean, New Hampshire is not known for politically powerful families. I think it's just Sununus are about it. So yeah, get a Sununu in there. Maybe you'll win. Who the hell knows? Uh, yeah, a lot of talk about this vaping stuff, Obi. I understood from some. I don't know it very well, but I understood from what the initial FDA stuff that they're clamping down on. It's not impacting as many people as they thought it was going to impact.
From what I understand, the small kind of cartridges that you can buy, like the one-time use type vaping cigarettes, the vapors or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna get rid of the flavors, except for menthol and tobacco.
But not the larger.
But the larger ones where you kind of fill up yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the big ones that you buy, you spend $100 and you reuse it forever.
Yeah.
Those ones are completely exempt from all that stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, that's better than what Trump initially put out, and everybody started freaking out, and things went a little haywire. Question, Kellyanne, what's up with redistricting of the AOC district? Well, listen, you got New York, you got California, you got the potential exodus of people that don't want to pay the taxes anymore, so they move into other states. So you've got maybe a loss of a congressional seat due to population, whatever. But we won't know that until the census of 2020. So this won't come into effect until 2022. When you say you might lose a seat, it's the Democrats in New York don't like her. Cuomo definitely hates her for the whole Amazon thing, so they'll cut her out. What they'll do if they lose a seat, they'll just redistrict her out, and nothing will stop that. In California, we have an issue where they may lose a congressional seat, and that'll just fuck us over because then they'll, redistricting is controlled. Congressional redistricting is controlled the same way every other redistricting is controlled by state. They do it. California's got every chamber, boom. Every chamber in the Supreme Court, it's over, boom. They'll cut out a Republican district if they lose a congressional. So people are like, oh, yeah, California, you blah, 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 blah. You're losing a congressional seat. That ought to teach you. Well, no, it's not going to teach anybody because that means a bunch of freaking Democrats moved into El Paso, Texas to screw us over in future elections in Texas. And now we're going to lose a Republican seat if we have any left. So people have to understand that redistricting is done at the state level. There is no intervention at the federal level. So it's not necessarily a great thing. I mean, it'd be nice to get rid of AOC, but in New York, it's not. It's just whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, we're gonna end up with more House members nationally, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but this is again, you get the census results back, you process them 2021, and you start making the decisions that redistricting goes into effect in 2022 if everything goes well and not get hung up in the court. So we don't have to worry about that right now. So people just need to stop worrying about anything that's not related to November 3rd, 2020, whatever the hell it is. So, and why do we care about AOC? We don't really give a shit, right? I mean, she's kind of been good for us.
Yeah.
So
definitely been good for us.
So, I mean, if you're in a state where you can have an open primary, you can vote for whoever the hell you want. It would be a pretty silly waste of your vote to go over and vote for Donald Trump when no one's running against him. I would go over and I would vote for Bernie Sanders. I mean, because that's just it's all going to blow up. I mean, that's your best bet at avoiding a brokered convention where they can come out with the candidate that they want. I think the matchup that we win on, no matter what, is Bernie Sanders. There's just no way Bernie Sanders takes us on and wins.
Yep.
Not gonna happen.
You see, got into this argument with my aunt this Christmas.
Mhm.
She likes Bernie Sanders, and she's a college professor. So you
Oh,
have
shut
of history. She's a history
shut.
professor, so
Mhm.
you already have a pretty good idea of who she is. And she likes Bernie Sanders, and I told her, listen, Biden has a better chance of winning. She's like, I don't like Biden. I like Bernie. I like Bernie. I was like,
See, but that's some good information, man. I mean, that's what you want. I mean, that's the type of voter intel that we think is more than anecdotal.
uh
I mean, we like that shit. I mean, if you can find a female professor to say that she likes Bernie, not or Elizabeth Warren, and just come down on Bernie, that's what we want. We want to hear that shit. We want to know because if Elizabeth Warren,
and she lives in Florida too.
yeah, so
But like me, from Massachusetts.
yeah, I think Florida is going to be Biden's still in. I think that's his spot, but
Hmm.
Florida, Carolinas, places like that. Rest of Super Tuesday, though, man. California is not going to vote for Joe Biden. Not going to happen. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going into rush Operation Chaos shit. If I don't like changing registrations because it's hard to get people back in time to vote for the next primary, but um, it depends on which state you live in, to be honest with you. So, I mean, if you're in New York or you're in New Jersey, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not worried about it. But there's some interesting states like Wisconsin, Michigan, where if we can get somebody like Bernie to the top, that's big news. We can do
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
So that would lead to a brokered convention, you think?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. I think you can you can always register and then re-register. I mean, you can't do that if you're very diligent about the whole thing. It's not a problem. But during
Hmm.
Operation Chaos back in '08, we had a hell of a time getting everybody back. Limbaugh had so many people swap over in order to vote for Obama, and you know how that turned out for us. But
Yeah,
we had a hard time.
swimmingly.
Yeah, we had a hard time getting everybody back, and then it screwed up all the strategic mailing data, and it was just a pain in the ass. It'll be a little easier this time with technology emerging, but uh, yeah, I think they still have a lot of super delegates, man. So we're not going to be able to control it the same way that somebody be able to control ours. So, and nobody talks about this, but I know for a fact there are a lot of states, open primary states, that voted for Donald Trump because they thought that he was the candidate that couldn't win.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hillary Clinton came out in the WikiLeaks. She was rooting for Trump. They did a
Yeah.
lot to try to get him the nomination in the beginning.
Well, and they knew they had Hollywood, Access Hollywood the whole
Right.
time. They knew that that was always going to
That
be
was
their,
their October
yeah,
surprise.
that was the October surprise. So,
But there's no more. They would have used anything they had. Like they're
yeah,
not saving another one for this October.
I think at this point, the only thing that can be revealed on Trump that hasn't been revealed yet is, through the courts. If somehow or another he has to release some taxes, or they can find something that they want to really pounce on. Doesn't necessarily have to be criminal. It could just more or less be like Mitt Romney esque, you know.
Hmm.
And frankly, we are talking about Donald Trump. So we are talking about a man who is liable to say anything at any time. So I mean, if you're a guy like me, you don't relax. You don't unclench your fucking colon until November 4th,
Hmm.
because you never know what this guy's going to do or say. So it's going to be a wild, bumpy ride
Hmm.
for sure. All we can tell people is we want to be on this ride with you as long as we can, with the best sources, analysis, truth. No gaslighting bullshit. If we're wrong, we'll tell you.
Hmm.
But realistically, how many times have we been wrong compared to all these other assholes out there, Obi, that are saying, this is it. Oh, yep, this is it. Up indictments, up this, up
Yeah.
war, up, I mean, it's just insane. I mean, they're always wrong. Up, the UN's coming to fucking just
Horowitz is gonna drop the bomb.
Yep, it's over. It's over. I mean, what? I mean, we've been right every single time along the way, reading the tea leaves as they are, writing the fucking table. It's not that fucking hard. Sometimes it's big old writing on the wall. It's not that hard, really. It's just not. You don't have to be a fucking clairvoyant to do what I do. You just have to spend time in the field for 20 years. Spend time studying everything Trump has done, everything around him for 3 years. And Occam's razor is really, really sharp at that point. It's not me reaching to pull out the gold nugget out of my ass. It's just that I don't need that to happen. So
it's almost like second nature. You just doing it so long, you just kind of already know the answer when you see you don't have to research it and think about it. It's like,
so you just have to do this. You have to find what's going on in the internet and look down on it. Plumes of smoke are now up.
Whoa.
Plumes. Steve Lookner, you rock, bro. I don't have a shirt and tie. I got to get a shirt and tie on or something. Steve Lookner. I like that name, man. You think that's his real name? Or do you make something up like that?
I don't know. I bet it's his name.
Steve Lookner. It just rolls off the tongue.
And he has his name as his at on Twitter. That's a pretty good get.
He got his own name? Oh, damn.
I wonder why he's so big. So popular.
Steve Lookner's the man, huh? Wow. Yeah. Oh, it's Looker? It's not Lookner?
No, it's Lookner. You're right.
Oh, okay. Silog was throwing me for a loop there.
That was probably an autocorrect.
Oh, yeah. He looks like a 40. Big fish going for the win.
What did he say?
He looks like a 40-year-old virgin.
He does look like that guy.
Night, Kelly.
Good night.
The little ones will be up in 4.5 hours. Mine will be up in 6 hours. But due to domestic harmony, Obi, that doesn't mean that I need to be up in 6 hours.
Excellent.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. And as soon as I figure out how to get a happy wife, I will have a happy life. But I think it requires a little bit more money than I currently make. So I think I'm going to switch this up for the last couple of minutes here, and I'm going to ask Obi some personal probing questions. Is there a lady in your life, sir?
Not at the moment, no.
Is there a prospect?
Not exactly, no.
Anyone breathing with a pulse, identifying at least with the gender of female?
That is a prospect? No.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Still playing the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't give up hope, because when I send you that brand new Space Force hat
and the Fred shirt,
brand new Fred shirt, you're going out to your local bar, and if you do not meet the woman of your dreams at night, just give up.
That's it. I got one shot. I better pick the right bar.
Yeah. Adam, it's Sarah Carter. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Your woman of your dream is Sarah Carter. Unfortunately, she is married to the man of her dreams, and he apparently has a 6-pack. Literally a 6-pack, like not a six pack, but a six pack.
Mhm.
He's got a six pack is nothing for Obi, but this guy
Is
is actually, yeah, that's just
isn't he like a military guy?
probably.
I don't I don't remember. I did I did know she was married though. Alas.
Yeah, her.
She
I want
kind
to
of
say
went
that.
too much with the TikTok
Yeah,
though.
I think I was about to say that, but I didn't know how to say it politely. But that's the best way to say it. Too much TikTok, and then of course her buddy John Solomon actually went so far into TikTok territory that the everybody just kind of blackballed him. But I
Mhm.
think Giuliani is trying to kind of bring that stuff back up. I mean, I think there is something there.
Mhm.
You'd be a fool to think that Giuliani is so drunk and so senile that he's just wrecking the halls
Mhm.
without having any information at all. And I've watched the 3-part series for the OAN. There's stuff there. I don't think it's
Definitely.
this, I don't think it's this multi-billion-dollar whatever you call it, some kind of money laundering thing or whatever. But certainly there's something there,
Mhm.
and we already have the evidence about Chalupa working with the Ukrainian embassy to get the dirt that got the Manafort,
The
sorry,
Black Ledger or
Manafort,
whatever.
the Black Ledger that was that they directed them to found it at the bottom of a locker, a foot locker, or something like that, and was manufactured.
Mhm.
Wasn't even real. But that became part of the whole prosecution effort and stuff like that. So there's a lot that we can find out there.
Mhm.
I just think Rudy is a little too cavalier right now. I wish he would just save it until we're done with the Senate, and then I think Lindsay's promised him a committee hearing, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken.
And he
Now,
said he would testify. He said he wants to testify during to the impeachment hearing, I think, but
yeah, that's not going to happen.
no, that's just smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
Nobody's testifying during that thing.
I know.
But
That's why it's like one of those promises that you don't mind making cuz
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
yeah.
He
Uh,
Dan Bongino just today had Rudy on for about 40 minutes on an interview.
no shit. That's too long.
Yeah. Maybe it was 34 minutes. Something like that.
Dan, um, man, I think he's pretty much 80% creatine at this point. And maybe the rest is like Red Bull. Wow.
That
It's
sounds
like,
about right.
yeah, he's just like he's like Joe Rogan without the marijuana. He's really excitable, and I don't listen to him. Not because I don't want to. I just don't need to.
Hmm.
Uh, but I enjoy getting some feedback when people tell me what they hear on a show.
Yeah, I'll tune in or I'll listen to his podcast every once in a while if I'm bored at say at work and Rush Limbaugh is just really boring that day, or it's nothing else to listen to, or if it's like say a job site with no cell phone coverage,
Hmm.
I can download the podcast and then like listen to it saved.
Jesus.
That doesn't happen very
Where the
often.
hell is there no cell
It doesn't
phone?
happen very often, but every once in a while there's a house with no cell phone service,
Well, my cabin doesn't. We don't really
or
have
it
any
like
down
doesn't
there.
work in the basement where you're working or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's got to be annoying when you're laying pipe. I mean, not pipe. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is annoying because
Yeah.
I can't. It used to be I'd have to have music on, at least something,
Mm.
but now I always listen to some sort of political thing for the most part at work. It just makes the day go by a lot easier.
Well, you do have good taste in music. I'll give you that.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'll listen to music too. So,
Well, we are approaching the magic hour here. So here's where we see if anybody else has any last minute questions. I want to say, everybody give a hand up and a hand out to Obi. You've done a spectacular job. You're far more interesting than Glenn has been for like 2 years. This is good.
Well, it's easy. I just let you talk 95% of the time.
All right. Well, maybe that was it. I don't know, but I just thought it was painless and it was nice. You did a good job. One shutdown is something we had the last time we were up too, so no big deal on that.
Hmm.
You got the simulcast up, which
Yeah,
is
small
good.
hiccup with the computer just stopping working, but that it's not the newest computer anymore. It's like 2 years old now.
Yeah, like yeah. It seems like yesterday you had yeah top shelf. You've got the big beast. You were happy.
Yeah, I mean
Right on. Yeah.
it was always a cheap computer, but so it's like a $500 computer. You
Mhm.
get a fair amount for that, but
That's cheap. $500 is cheap.
yeah, it's pretty bottom of the line for a computer.
Oh,
I mean, you could. There's probably a couple cheaper that you could buy that are just totally not even won't even do what I want them to do.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
But
didn't. I
you gotta
don't.
have to have a certain amount of RAM, processors, and whatever. But yeah, it's by no means is it like a $2,000 gaming computer or like a $5,000 Mac like
Oh
Glenn
yeah.
has.
Yeah, I have the simple MacBook. It's good. Can't do a whole lot. Not a lot on OBS, by the way. I tried some test runs on that. Doing what you guys do, mine was shut down immediately.
Hmm.
So no, I wouldn't be on. I would just be on Periscope tonight if it wasn't for you jumping in. So we appreciate that. And Glenn does deserve his vacation.
Yeah,
He does. Um,
for a man that doesn't work, he sure
I
works a
think
lot.
Yeah, I think he's out there kind of like doing an investigation on the shooting. I
Yeah,
think that's probably what he's doing, judging by how little people are seeing him out there, that came out there to see him.
that
I
makes
think he's
sense.
doing his investigation. He's going to have a whole Vegas investigation. He's going to do a, full scale Laura Loomer.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't periscope it and
Yeah.
go to the person's house. The remember that security guard or
Oh,
whatever that
Jesus.
was? That was weird. The one interview that guy did was with like
Hmm.
Ellen, right?
Yeah, but almost as weird as the brother in the driveway. Remember that interview? Brother of the shooter.
Oh, I don't think I saw that one.
Oh, that was a crazy interview, man. Something went haywire in the talking points on that one. But again, here, largest mass shooting death total in American history. And what do we know? What do we know? We know nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yep.
So
They can't
uh,
figure out why he did it.
I would say that as much as people want to be suspicious of our military industrial complex and things of that nature, I would be much, much more suspicious of our law enforcement agencies at the federal level right now. And they have proven to be much more dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a lot of question marks from top to bottom, top to
Mm-hmm.
bottom. And I heard a little clip the other day. I'm not sure how recent it was. It was Joe Rogan and a reporter, I think named Dory, I think, and they were talking about Seth Rich. It was one of the rooms I think you're in, and they were talking about how you can't even say anything about Seth Rich even now, and you'll
Yeah.
be painted as a conspiracy theorist and all that other stuff. And while I'm not claiming that there is some kind of a conspiracy, I am saying that this is a murder, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a murder of a DNC staffer who was, according to Julian Assange, a person who provided information to them within a certain number of hours was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that people like to say that this is a case that the DC police has covered up for Donna Brazil and DNC, that doesn't measure up. The federal government can go into the District of Columbia and take over any murder investigation that they want, any kidnapping investigation that they want. So again, you'd have to ask William Barr, or you'd have to ask Chris Wray, uh, why can't you reinvestigate, or why can't we really look into this? And you
Mm-hmm.
got to ask yourself, what's really going on, man? I mean, Christopher Wray has been pushing back on all suggested changes, from the FISA court reports and the Horowitz report and what's going to come out of Durham. It seems like Christopher Wray is just throwing himself on the institutional grenade and trying to save as many people as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
before you trash everything to do with like a Seth Rich or anything like that, remember that the guy who calls the shots is William Barr. Before you call the Mueller investigation into General Flynn a total sham, remember that the Mueller investigation has been over. Mueller's office dissolved. He's going into sentencing in about 3 weeks because William Barr signed off on his
Mm-hmm.
sentencing. So people, they get a little mixed up about who to look at, who's ultimately in charge of this stuff. It's William Barr. So we got to make sure he's not just talking a good game sometimes and then nothing ever happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I think people are frustrated, and I think they will be frustrated after the Durham report doesn't yield any real results other than maybe Kevin Kleinsmith
Now,
taking
are
a
we going to get an actual
recommendation.
report, or is there just going to be or not going to be indictments, and that's all we'll ever know?
Yeah, I think we'll get that. We'll get the well. Let's look. It's not a special counsel type of thing, so the report doesn't have to be issued. Matter of fact, the report from Mueller didn't have to be publicized at all. By law, it
Right.
could have stayed with. So this is a little bit different. I don't think so. To be honest with you, I think that any recommended charges that come out of the report will be part of a grand jury indictment process,
Mm-hmm.
and so certain parts of the report that go through the grand jury process will be secret because that's part of the process. But if somebody's indicted, boom, it comes out. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge, it looks like Kleinsmith is the only one in the crosshairs right now. But you never know. I mean, they're going to look at phone records and other things from Brennan and Clapper. So it certainly seems to me in January of 2020 that it seems like a good time to start to temper expectations so that everybody's ready to get focused on reelection. By January 20 something, General Flynn will serve a couple days in jail. Know that that's coming, and know that he might not be pardoned until after the election. Know that Durham report will probably be done by about March, maybe the latest April, and know that that will contain very little in the way of criminality. Perhaps following through with a Kevin Kleinsmith attempt to indict him. So know that that's going to happen, and then get it out of your system because we have an election to win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's not going to be anybody strung up or killed or all that other bullshit you might hear from your Q people. But I would say that we have done foundational damage to the deep state. Like that they're looking over the shoulders now. They can't get away with what they can get away with before. And even if Christopher Wray is not fired or moved on or whatever, they can't do that anymore. Everything's going to be done in line. And that's all we want is a fair chance to win re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And if we win re-election, who knows? Then maybe you can open up longer investigations. You can do more with the Senate. And I guarantee you, if you have the Senate and you have the House, President wins re-election, he's going to open these investigations into the shit that happened to him. I promise you. So just make sure you remember, number one priority, get that hand on the Bible again for January 2021 for Donald Trump. Because if not, we are fucked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The country and Trump himself.
And potentially half the world. I think we're done.
I think so.
We've had a great crew tonight, man. I think our numbers matched everything we normally do.
Hmm?
And we had no build up tonight. Nobody knew for sure we were coming on.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? Obi did prime time? and then he's ready for it. Glenn is going to take you up on this and probably take off 2 Saturdays a month.
Well, I am doing the Sunday with the Colonel show tomorrow too.
Well, that's good. I think Colonel will enjoy talking without being ridiculed by Glenn every 5 minutes. I will check in for that because I just wait till the Eagles game is over and Seattle kneels down at the end of their 48-7 victory before you go on. Slider, suck it, baby. You know what's going to happen. Thank you for everybody. Bryce and my buddy Bill, Jen will get you together with me and we'll talk turkey. Obi, I'm out of words, man. I'm out of words. You did a great job. But unfortunately, you have to do a closeout, and it requires at least 2 to 3 to 4 minutes.
Uh-oh. I don't know if it's going to be
you
that
must
long.
Wax poetic. Poetic, I said, not your genitals or your chest. No, we had a great time tonight. And I thank everybody who contributed, donated to the show, donated to me. I trust one thing in Seattle only. It ain't Starbucks. It ain't the cops. It's that the Seahawks will serve justice in Philadelphia. And to that, I pray.
Okay.
All right, here's where I check out. I love you all. I'll be back Tuesday night, I think, with Glenn, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he's coming back after the weekend. So,
and if he doesn't, then you see that face right there.
He might. Who knows?
So we might be back, and that won't be problematic at all. All right, thanks everybody. Listen, Obi, do the Walter Cronkite non-liberal version sign off.
Okay. Uh-oh. I forgot it switches everything up when Adam leaves. I have to quickly. See, the secret is Glenn has his setup way different than mine. Because he has a Mac. And I can't capture my camera at the same time as I'm using Zoom. So, there. Yeah. It's fixed. I should have hid myself and fixed it in the background. But you all got to see what happens behind the scenes. The magic. Adam said I had to do a 3 or 4 minute. I think I'm gonna sneak out before that. It's pretty late already for me. About 3 o'clock. 2:50 in the morning. Saturday night, baby. The most fun you can have this side of Mississippi. If you're this side of Mississippi. To everyone, I'm just gonna say good night and tune in tomorrow night where we'll get to hear the Colonel's military perspective on what's going on in that godforsaken part of the world. There's nothing there but, blood and sand. Is that what President Trump said? We don't get anything but death. I forget exactly the phrase he used, but I agree with Adam's point. I think Afghanistan is a good pivot, a good talking point pivot to chill out some of the hair running on fire. We just started World War III. Trump's now a neocon working for Israel. Retards out there. So, until next time, everyone have a good night. Sleep well. Always remember, keep your head up, keep your heart right, and keep your stick on the ice. See you later.